All right, who's doing what?
And
I'll do the first two.
All right, no, you're doing the first two?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do the third, and Michael, you doing the
I'll do the fourth.
All right.
Say when. I can't see it this time.
Now.
Welcome back to Come and Brew It Radio, coming to you from Texas Brewing Inc. in Haltom City, Texas. You can find us on the web at txbrewing.com. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and share with your friends. In this episode, we've got the Denton County Homebrewers Guild in to talk about their club and their new British beer competition, the Redcoat Challenge. The competition was almost enough to lure Nigel back into the studio, and hopefully we can lure you into participating by entering and judging.
For our main topic, we'll be diving into the long-awaited subject of hard seltzers. Whether they're from a major brand, a local craft brewery, or out of your carboy at home, these light fizzy drinks are becoming very common and offer non-craft beer drinkers an alternative that's refreshing and easy to drink.
Before we get started, please be sure to check out our Patreon account to help support the show. Every little bit counts, and if you visit patreon.com/comeandbrewItRadio, we have a variety of options for you to help keep the show going, get involved, and improve it. Also, every live show will be we will have a giveaway for all of our Patreons at the end of each month. We'll also be doing a monthly product giveaway for all of our $5, $10, and $20 Patreons. I'm Michael.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Chris.
I'm Brian.
I'm Gunner.
And in the gallery we have...
And the peanut gallery up here.
All right. Woo! We sound like we've done this once or twice, huh?
Yeah.
I forgot that I didn't finish writing the intro. I got there and went, oh, I didn't want to keep that part in, and crossed it out, and that meant I didn't have to talk about it. But
You know, as a listener of the show, first time on here, I'm really glad you guys didn't polish that turd up too much before we. I appreciate it.
we like to keep it real around here.
It's a real experience. You guys are real. Yeah.
I like to have a real improvisational feel to it.
Yeah, nothing
right.
like 5 seconds to you're being told, hey, you have the last little verse there. So
Right. Well, it's we only had about 45 minutes of notice.
Yeah,
There was no way we could possibly have worked that all out ahead of time.
we were too busy using up all of our good content.
We had to eat chicken and talk about the subjects we were going to talk about before the show.
Yeah.
And all that good stuff. So.
Yeah.
So welcome back. We've got a really cool show tonight. It's one we've been talking about doing for a long time. I've been really looking forward to doing this, which is the hard seltzer episode. We've teased it a lot, partially because we were really waiting for everybody's homebrew versions of this to be done, because we are going to have a kit coming out in the store, and there's a few different schools of thought on how to do this, and so we're going to taste some of the results tonight, taste some commercial examples, and also some local craft breweries, and I'm for a tasteless, watery, fizzy drink, I'm a little bit more excited than I would have expected to be.
Yeah, I was very skeptical at first, and then I thought about it and more, and I'm like, well, it's basically a cider except without apple flavor. And then you just decide what flavor you want to put into it, and it's easy.
See, I just find all this great because I remember just a few months ago coming in here and talking about, hey, I tried one at Collective and all you guys gave me shit. Stubby talk shit. Everybody was like, hard seltzer, ha, ha, ha.
I don't think I did.
Okay, maybe not you, Brandon, but I remember that there was a lot of, hazing for it.
I mean, I totally
Well, it's
believe
pretty common that I'm a lot cooler than everybody else around here. So
Yeah, and I even brewed one before you did, Michael.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's one of those, I'm kind of excited about it. I helped carb them up today in the shop, the 3 examples we have, and they all tasted really good. They were rather interesting. So I've talked to one of the local guys about how they're doing it over at Collective. So I kind of got a little bit of insight on that.
All right, so good. That's going to be in the second half. We're going to get to that, and also I know we are way behind on rewarding our patrons and doing our drawings and that kind of thing. So we are going to make up for that today in a big way. So if you're a patron and you're waiting for us to do our every show giveaway that we keep talking about and haven't been doing, please bear with us. We're going to make up for that tonight, and you'll be pretty happy about it. So away we go.
Oh.
So as far as recent happenings go, I want to get right to the second one on here, which is the Brute IPA one. We were discussing this before the mics turned on. Yep. I think I land kind of somewhere in the middle of the opinions around here on this one. But basically, Brute IPA is a developing style, and there is no real official definition for it. And much like when New England IPA was newer, that creates a lot of debate about what's the important part of it, how is it done correctly, all that kind of thing. So the American Homebrewers Association posted recently the initial definition. Basically, it's a guidelines not only for how to brew it, but also some descriptions that you can use when you're submitting one to competition in order for the judges to understand what you were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. Regardless of what your opinions are of the style, and we have differing opinions in this room, I'm sure that run the gamut on them.
I'd love to learn to like a new style of IPAs or a new style of any beer. I haven't had one that I particularly liked yet, but there's several beers that I can't find one that I like either.
And I'm kind of the opposite. It's a style. Yeah, I've had a couple bad ones. I've brewed one or two that haven't come out. I've also brewed one that was really damn good, and I've had several really good commercial examples. Umagung, theirs is really good. Sierra Nevada does one that's really solid. So there are. Stone did one also that was really good.
I think New Belgium might as well.
Yes, that's the other one. I was trying to think. There's several of the bigger national guys that to me have done really good examples of them. So but it can go bad.
So let's kind of talk about what exactly we mean by good examples of them, because really, in my opinion, I kind of lean towards Chris's opinion on this one, in that I just, whether or not it's a good example or how well it's done, in my opinion, it's just a style that the core of it I have a hard time getting behind.
Yeah. What exactly is a brewed IPA supposed to be?
Well, that's what we've got here. So let's go ahead and just read what it's talking about. I just put the overall impression in here. I didn't want to put the entire description and go through flavor. I mean, really, when you're looking to judge these things or looking to describe them to somebody that's judging, that's what you're going to use as the overall impression. You're not going to put an entire style guideline for them. And the overall impression kind of captures, okay, what is it that you're supposed to think about this beer once you drink it. So what they've got down so far is a very pale, very dry, highly effervescent variant of an American IPA, usually highly hopped with aromatic hops, but with far less actual bitterness. Yep. The aroma is moderate to intense hop aroma, featuring one or more characteristics of American or New World hops, including citrus, floral, pine, resinous, spicy, tropical fruit, topical... Topical fruit,
yeah.
Stone fruit, berry, melon, etc. Any American or New World hop character is acceptable. New hop varieties continue to be released and should not constrain this style. So that's an important note there, that really any type of hop character in terms of flavor and aroma is going to be acceptable as long as it's at the right level.
Well, no, as long as it's American or New World. Noble hop.
Well,
but why would you be using a noble hop? I mean,
yeah.
That would be stupid.
Okay. Well, you know what? They are specifically saying that, so you're right. Yeah. Most are heavily hopped after flame out, either during whirlpool, dry hopped, or both. Some champagne styles may incorporate fruit aromatics from additions of actual fruit in addition to or instead of hop-derived fruit. This is something I had no idea about this style. I don't know if I've ever had an example that had fruit in it, so I'm curious where that comes from. Grapes or grape must may be used in these versions to bridge the gap between sparkling wines and beer. Okay. A low to medium-low clean malty grain aroma may be found in the background. Sweet, grainy aromatics of corn or rice may be present but are not required, as a moderate to high percentage of adjuncts in the grain bill are often used as a means of increasing attenuation. Some brewers have reported aromas of coconut from high amounts of rice in the grain bill. So, that's really, let's touch on a couple of different things there because we covered a lot of ground with that. Let's go to the fruit additions on that because Mike, have you had?
I've never had any of the fruited ones. I do know one of the local guys that shops in the shop a lot, Jonathan Estrada. He's done a lot of fruited ones. He keeps telling me I need to add fruit to mine, and I thought he was crazy because I hadn't heard of it being done. But now I guess that is something that is done.
And they're actually talking about grape or wine must, grape must also to basically dry it out and give it kind of a wine-like character. That I could see.
And when I read that, or when you read that and I heard that, I thought there is one I've had that has a grape musk, and I can't remember what it was, but there was definitely one that had that whiny,
white grape juice kind of.
Yeah. That's kind of what I would picture too, is white grape juice. I mean, that's probably they're just pouring Welch's in there.
What the overall impression sounds like to me is an IPA or a high hopped version of a Berliner Weiss.
Well, Berliner Weiss is sour though. It's got lactic
but I mean,
acid in it. So
instead of having a sour, you're going with hops.
and Berliner Weiss has a lot of wheat in it too. So it's really
See, to me, it kind of reminded me a little bit of an IPL. As far as, except maybe a drier IPL. How as far as the malt's really clean, the hops, maybe this being a little more fruitier hops, a little more citrus hops, but I kind of got a similar to an IPL.
Yeah, so maybe we should back up a little bit because what the overall impression does leave out of that is the dryness. The dryness. I mean, really, if you're talking about a brewed IPA, you're talking about a final gravity of what, nothing, zero, right? Is that what you're shooting for? Is zero?
As dry as you can get, right?
Well, yes. I've done one that finished at a 996. But I actually shoot for more a 1002, just because I think sometimes they can be too dry.
But would you think maybe 1005 or below, or
I think 1005 is too high. I mean, really, I would think a 1003 and to a 1, so somewhere along in those lines.
Okay. Actually, it does give that part. It's talking original gravity of 1060 to 1080, final gravity of 0.99 to 1004.
1004.
So 1004
Okay.
for the top out. I could see that. And
Yeah.
personally, I would think from the ones I've tasted that 1004 would be pretty high for what it is.
So the last couple that I've done, I've used the enzyme.
Right.
Gone blank.
The amylase enzyme.
The amylase. Thank you. Yeah, and what I've done is I fermented it regularly. Just regular. Then added that. And initially, I used the Gulo strain from Omega, and I got down to a 1008. Which, I mean, that's a dry beer. Then I added the enzyme in there and got it down to a 1002. At that point, I cold crashed to kind of stop it, and it wound up at like a 101.
So
somewhere,
to clarify on the enzyme, what we're talking about is a beta amylase enzyme, the same type that you're activating during the mash by hitting your saccharification rest in the probably 1050 or excuse me 151 and below range is really where the betas are going to be, and that's going to give you the most fermentable wort. Now the thing about when you're mashing is that it's not an absolute. In the low temperature ranges, you're not only activating the beta, the alpha amylase that create the long chain dextrins are still active, and they're still breaking things down. So you are going to end up with some dextrins in there. So what you're doing is going in afterwards and putting in beta amylase enzymes that are going to go and take those dextrins and break all of them down. So you basically don't want any dextrins left in this beer. You want everything to be fermentable, and you want to get it as dry as possible, because really you're trying to emulate champagne in terms of real dry, highly carbonated, and real drinkable.
So where are you adding that at the process? At the start of fermentation or somewhere during the...
I've added it.
What's worked best for you? Because I've heard different people doing this at different times and whatnot.
Yeah, I've found I just add it at the end of fermentation.
So you do it at the end just to drive it down that last little
finish
bit.
it, because I'm like I said, I'm using that Omega Gulo, which is made for kind of the brute style. It's a
diastatic yeast. So the diastatic yeast put off glucoamylase enzymes themselves, and so they'll actually break down dextrins themselves, and so the Gulo yeast is supposed to be able to take it down as dry as possible. Now, I've used it before, and it did take it down pretty dry. Yeah. But I think we're talking about an even more extreme version of that. To get it down to 0 or below 0, you really have to break down everything that's in there as much as you can. And I had heard of people using it in the mash, and I think that the argument against that is that you need to get the post-mash dextrins that are left in there broken down. And you're still going to end up with those, even if you put the enzymes in the mash. So people are doing what you're doing, which is putting them in at the end of fermentation.
And if you read on the package itself, it tells you, I want to say anything above 148, 149, the enzyme stops working. So it's one of those in your mash. I mean, if you're off a degree or two, you can then be using it for
denature it, and you're just throwing it in and doing nothing.
So that's kind of why I went with the post fermentation, and I've had, like I said, I've had pretty good results. I've left it in 36, 48 hours. I mean, not very long. Taking my second gravity, and it usually been pretty close to where I wanted. And like I said, at that point, I've cold crashed it to help stop that process or slow it down.
So let's move on to the next point where it's talking about the malt flavor in it, which is low to medium low, clean, malty, grainy aroma that can be found in the background. Sweet, grainy aromatics of corn or rice may be present, but are not required, as a moderate to high percentage of adjuncts in the grain bill are often used as means of increasing attenuation. So I go back to what I remember James Lalonde saying in a lot of our BGCP classes, that you can say, instead of low, you can say very, very low or very low, and that's the same thing as no, as none, and that's really what I've gotten out of these, is really absolutely no malt character, and that's kind of my issue with this style, is there is just nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think especially if you were to put corn or rice in there, you're even more so. Corn has some residual flavor
That's
to
why
it.
you might use corn if you want to keep a little residual sweetness.
Yeah,
Rice will
maybe.
be much
Yeah,
more cleaner.
yeah,
so
that's probably a
maybe
good
try some
idea.
corn.
Yeah.
See, and I've used the Planet malt by the Muntins Planet. And
The extra pale?
no, just the
regular Planet?
yeah,
Okay.
just the regular Planet. I've started using that a lot, actually. I really like that.
Tell you
grain.
what, I brewed with it twice now, and I really like that malt.
I really like that,
Especially if you're
so-
brewing English beers, which we're going to get into it in a few minutes here when we talk about their competition. I'm a convert on that Planet malt. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So,
So the last point kind of on this, which I found interesting, is that some brewers have reported aromas of coconut from high amounts of rice. That kind of intrigues me.
yeah, that throws me off. I don't
because
know.
I would like to be able to, to think that I can add enough rice that it's going to give me a coconut flavor. Well, that might be something that you could use hops to play off of. And
The way I
really have an
read
interesting-
that is more like if you happen to taste coconut in this, it's not necessarily an off flavor or actual coconut. It might just come from adjuncts that are in there. But, because this is designed for somebody who is judging the beer to have something to go by.
Yeah, true.
That's kind of how I read that. What I think it leaves out of this is that and maybe it's just because I only printed out this one particular part of it. I
now
don't
looking
want to
at the
print out
rest
4
of
pages
detail.
of stuff, yeah. But the bitterness part of it is crucial, because since there is...
so what do they have the IBUs at?
Let's see here.
Just
That's a really good question, yeah.
Because
IBUs are
I assume low.
15 to 25.
Yeah.
So you're
Okay.
talking about a
Fair
beer
enough.
that's between 5.5% and 12%. So at 12%, it maxes out at 25 IBUs. That's really low IBUs for a 12%
Yeah,
beer.
that's
So
definitely.
and that's the key, and that's one of the things that I've found in examples of this that I didn't like. When we went to HomebrewCon in Oregon, there were several breweries that were putting this out when it was a really new style, and man, they were harsh. The bitterness was really harsh, and I think that the bitterness has got to be really tough to nail on this.
See, when I've done mine as a zero boil, 0 hops in the boil. I've cooled it down to 170 and did my first hop addition
just
then
like
as
Whirlpool.
a whirlpool.
Yeah.
And that even then that you're still going to get. I think I added enough hops that I was close to that 15 IBU, 15, 20 IBU.
Well, the New World hops are generally really high alpha. aren't they?
Yeah. And the first batch we did was all with. We had a bunch of New World Australian hops from like last year's, the 2017 I think harvest, and our Ella was like 21%. The Galaxy was 19% alpha. I mean, just huge. Even adding an ounce at 170 for a 15-minute whirlpool gave us like 10 IBU. I mean, it was just insane. Like, it was fun though.
So if you're looking at brewing this and entering it into competition, that's been anytime you've had something like this. That's who said don't?
It's too new of a style. Don't enter this.
Well, this gives you
but
a
this
little
does
bit
give
of
it-
hope to
yeah.
be able to enter it in. And what they said was that you would want to enter this in category 21B, which is specialty IPA, and use this description in your comments section.
Yeah.
Now that's going to vary from competition to competition
Yeah.
too. I ran Ozaf the one year, and you couldn't have put all of this in there. There's nowhere to put it in our software to do it. A lot of software is not designed for you to put paragraphs of writing in there. So,
But if you just put Brute IPA in there,
right. Well, you better hope that the person either
Knows
has a
what the
good
hell that
understanding
is.
of it, or
Yeah.
that they go to
Or
read
is
this.
Give them a link or something to reference back to. Please see.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, cross your fingers and hope. I
Yeah,
think you're
hoping people can follow signs and instructions. Yeah, we
Yeah, you're throwing up a Hail Mary no matter what you're doing with this one. So, at any rate, if you're into brewing that and you like it and you're wanting to enter it into competition, go to the AHA website and it's on there. There's a lot more information than what we just read off because I didn't want to read off the entire thing. It's really a full guideline with appearance and flavor and mouthfeel and comments and history and characteristic ingredients and all that good stuff. So
History, really? The history's all of what, 2 years old?
well, it's a short paragraph.
I was going to say that the history on that beer is not very long there.
They're making history, right?
And continually evolving, yeah.
Okay, so I had another one on here to talk about, and I'll be honest, I didn't read this very much ahead of time in terms of how complicated this is. So maybe it's something we should just touch on real quick and come back to in another episode, and that's this ancient Egyptian beer that someone brewed recently. Has anybody read enough of this to talk about it? Or
I've read a couple of. I've skimmed over this one, and I've read a couple other ones that are similar to this, and it seems like they find, in every one of these, they find an old recipe, and then it's some people who are not normally beer brewers make it normally, and then they make it and then go, well, yeah, it's okay. I think that Mr. Beer was better, but I mean, it's pretty good.
See, this one, from what I read, was better than that. It's better than it normally is because I agree. I've seen that too. And when you look at anything, even when you go back to like colonial times and try and look at beer recipes, they're almost gibberish, because of the measurements they use, the names for ingredients, all kinds of things. It just
you don't use hog heads at home?
Right. It just doesn't make any sense.
Cool the beer to blood warm and then
This
allow
one-
it to sit uncovered for a fortnight.
Until it boils.
But
Right,
is this not something, did Dogfish Head not do this with Midas Touch?
What they did is they went to Egypt and they cultured wild yeast that was out in the air and brought it back. And the only reason I know that is because it was part of their TV show that they did.
And I listened to his book, his Audible book, and I thought they found an old recipe that they also then recreated with the yeast or something.
I think he takes a little bit of liberty.
They tried to emulate it with saffron and other ancient
Right, yeah, I
spices.
think you're right. I think he tries to emulate it
Honey.
more than anything. This
Yeah,
really
I
tried
remember
to
honey.
This tried to really recreate it using clay vessels for fermentation vessels,
okay.
and even to the
Interesting.
point where how they drank it. So what they said is that they would never have racked this from one vessel to another. They fermented it in a vessel and then they drank it with a straw so that they could drink off of all the crap that was in the bottom, basically.
Okay,
And so it was drank real fresh. It was probably warm. Well, it was definitely warm. There was no refrigeration in Egypt.
Well, it gets a little cold at night. Maybe it was breakfast
That's
beer.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool it down
So,
in the Nile overnight. Yeah.
Well, and that's what's
the dog.
interesting. I just finished listening to an Audible that was called Beeronomics, and they talked about how they covered the history. They explained the history of the world based on beer, basically, and how a lot of the laws and a lot of the wars and stuff were fought over, according to them, beer. But they talk about, one of them, and I want to say 1400s, how it was like a 2-day fermentation. And they were drinking it straight out of the vessel, and not realizing that it really wasn't fermenting.
Well, really, if you think about it, that there's no chance for infection to set in if you drink it within 2 or 3 days of doing it. And it's real low alcohol is 2%, 1.5%,
Just
that kind
enough
of
to
thing.
kill off what's living in it already.
Right. And so, and I have a feeling this is like that too. I wish I had read it more. It's been a long week. I have just not had time. So
One of the other-
that is on the BritishMuseum.org blog.
I was thinking
And-
Nat Geo.
yeah, but British Museum. It's a really good article. This is a food historian. I can't
Historian.
talk tonight. Food historian who
historians.
brought in 2 brewers to help her with it.
Oh, okay.
And
So-
used authentic fermentation vessels and straws and all that stuff to drink it. So it's worth the read. I thought it was pretty cool.
I got this one actually confused because I thought we were talking about a different 5,000-year-old beer recipe.
Because there's multiple 5,000-year-old beer recipes.
I keep seeing, iterations of thousands of years.
Hey, everything old
beer
is new again
recipes.
now, right?
And I've been listening to an Audible book that's all about poisons and diseases of the 13, 14, and 1500s, and one of them was that the only way people managed to survive half the time was they would take and mix beer and wine into things, and that's the only way they survived drinking their own water.
Well,
Sure.
and that's kind of what this Audible that I was listening to that they talk about is how beer wasn't what it is now. It was safer to drink than the water, so they drank the boiled beer, because it was everybody drank it. It was ultra low alcohol, had a lot of nutrients and stuff in it, and
Yeah.
Well, and then just the fact that it had been boiled.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You know,
And they-
that's-
Right.
Which
had
they
no
didn't
idea.
realize.
The beer part of it's just a positive
Yeah.
plus. You know, just the fact you boiled it though made it
Exactly.
flavor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
they didn't. They had yet to make that. You know.
Sure, they didn't have microbiology,
Yeah.
or they didn't understand it at the time, right?
It was all
It-
witchcraft.
the
and
the
alchemy.
heat
it was
chased away
voodoo, yeah.
the disease wizards and
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
The
genies.
smell
The
actually
bad
brought
air,
the
the bad
good
airs.
humors into the beverages.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that without refrigeration, they wanted to drink it well before it cooled. Well, got to room temperature.
Yeah.
So as
Ooh,
soon
yeah.
as that fermentation stopped, there's probably a fear of continuing to drink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so that pretty much covers that. I really recommend going and reading the article. It's a really long article. That's really the reason I didn't get too in depth in it. I kind of hit the high points on it, kind of like I was studying for an exam. I want to get to this next one, and I want to preview.
Oh.
Well, let's do one real fast.
Oh, are we drinking this shit?
Oh, God.
It has been all over.
We'll just
All right,
talk
all
about
right.
it.
Let's, you're right. Let's do it.
If just a super quick, if you're local, if you're in the Texas area, I'm sure you've seen. If we can get a shot of the best damn pickle beer. Martin House did this beer. It is freaking blown up. It's everywhere. It's actually kind of hard to get. So that is recent happenings. We don't have to talk anymore about it being a pickle beer. And there's some other breweries that claim that they've been doing it before them and everything. But
Nice.
I kind of want to try it.
There was a brewery last
Pull
year
it
that
out.
was.
Let's do it. Let's do this thing.
Sure.
Let's suffer for our
Okay.
Get it over with now. Go
I
ahead.
did bring enough to share.
Yeah, one can. That should be enough.
That's an accurate assessment.
Yep.
I'll try. Okay.
Now,
I'll reserve
I will
judgment.
I mean,
say
there's
that,
different possibilities. You know,
yeah.
pickle in your
that
glass.
our longtime friend Doug Zent, who is part owner of a brewery in Russia, he brought back a pickle beer that they did with some guys from Estonia. And I thought I was going to hate it, and he brought it over to a brew day at my house, and his was really good. Now, I'll say that the pickle was subtle in it. It was like a pickle saison with just a little bit of pickle. That's not what I've heard about this beer.
This
I
is
don't-
not
I
subtle
don't-
at all.
Subtle is not the word I would use.
We need some in the control
Well,
booth,
that's
too.
right.
If we have to suffer, you have to suffer.
I was gonna say, but
If they
Martin
die,
House
they
doesn't
die.
doesn't usually do subtle. So,
Jesus, dude.
I would love to do a dill saison.
but I mean, come on, look
Not
at
a
the
pickle
clarity
saison,
on that
but
beer, though.
Yeah, I mean,
That is incredible clarity, nice head retention. I mean,
I would say that it's brilliantly clear with
I would-
medium-low head retention.
that nice golden color. I
Yep.
mean, it's that.
I mean, maybe a swamp gold.
Now that's about as far as I could go on the judging because then you get all kinds of weird aromas that just aren't judging lingo.
No, there's one
and-
aroma. There's one aroma.
Well,
It's
okay,
only one.
The aroma of pickle isn't
Right.
something that we've discussed in our BJCP class.
No,
You think
but
it's been
wrong-
dry pickled?
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's pretty good.
I feel like
at
they
least
took.
2-3 jars.
I feel like they took and poured a
It's-
little bit of beer in some pickle juice.
So here's my assertion of this is Chris Bradley. What did they add powdered vinegar to this?
You can
I have no
get
clue.
Powdered vinegar?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You can get powdered water, dude.
Yeah. Just,
You can. It's on,
Just
it's on the
add
beer-
water,
it's on
boom.
the aisle.
Yeah, because a lot of this tastes like those salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that really bright vinegar that it.
That's a really good point, Chris. It really does, actually.
It is what it is. Okay, so now that we got the pickle beer out of the way,
I was planning on saving that for last.
it's recent happenings.
No, I think we needed to put this in here because the
I'm
next
pretty
thing
sure
may
we're gonna have
because
this
then
pickle beer all
completely
night.
derail the whole show.
the next thing might
I wanted
cost
to-
us our show.
I wanted to
So-
save it for later because I was afraid it was going to destroy
the more I
taste
sit here and
buds.
sip on it, it's kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
starting to grow on me. I mean,
Yeah,
I
this-
don't
this blew
want to
some
get like a
palates.
6-pack of it, but
No, the
Well,
I
know,
I
I
can finish a can. Like,
I bought
okay,
2 6-packs of it.
I was to say the amount
is
that
a
I got
lawnmower
is
beer.
probably
Lifetime
good.
supply.
Yeah, like
Straight up.
you've been out
lawnmower.
mowing the lawn or something all day, something like
Oh,
this.
no,
yeah,
Exactly what I
no.
was thinking.
Don't go
No,
for the Gatorade.
Yeah, like,
hard
Because see,
Gatorade.
I don't know. I feel I couldn't crush this.
It's really. Oh, you can crush
Oh,
it.
God damn it.
Community service project?
What were you saying, man?
Is this Martin House's community service project?
Yeah, it's a
Maybe.
pro bono outreach.
I remember last year someone had a. They did a pickle. They did like
Hot
a frozen
fusion.
pickle.
Oh.
Somebody did like pickle snow cones at the brewery.
Okay, so when's the Coolickle beer coming?
The cool lickle.
That was a collective thing, wasn't it? Didn't they do a Coolical?
Did they?
Yeah, they
What's that
did.
They have frozen slushies on
Okay.
Saturdays.
Yeah,
Okay. Ooh.
I like beer personally. I like to go to breweries and get beer.
I mean, I've always
you
wanted
know,
to take
you want to
some of
get
the-
white girl wasted. You know, have a slushie.
I've always wanted to take some of our fruitier or more aromatic hop beers and put them through a smoothie machine or an icy machine and get them
Yeah.
slightly frozen. I thought that would be kind of cool to try out. But, renting one's kind of expensive and buying one is $3,000.
Okay, so kind of on that note, I judged our local Cap and Hair, one of the other local homebrew. I judged their master brewer a couple weeks ago or a month ago, and the winner's been announced now, so I can talk about it.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
I had a mango Berliner slushy, however you want to. That was freaking amazing.
Well, when he won first place, and they announced that, I thought that must have been a damn good.
That was
beer
a damn
for,
good beer.
for a beer with that description to have won.
It was one of those. There were 4 of us judging, and we had a 5-beer mini best of show. Mm-hmm. We all unanimously. That was the best beer.
Yeah, I
The
went up
second
and shook
third
his
we
hand
could've-
at the meeting and told him that was a nice win because if he won with that beer, it had to be damn good.
And it seriously, it was one of those like we all tried and was like, wow, that was. And I wanted to talk to him about that, but I missed this last meeting because that beer was freaking awesome.
I'd like to throw a shout out to my friend and our loyal listener Andy Lim, who brought us actual regular beer. It's beer flavored beer, and it's served in a beer container.
Who drinks beer flavored beer?
It has the consistency of beer. It's shaped like beer. It pours like beer.
Hold it up for him.
Yes, we've
So
got
did the Martin House.
Where's the? Is it here? There we go.
there you
So
go.
we got some of the Galveston Tiki wheat. I gotta admit, when I saw this in there and saw American wheat, I was not enthused about it. This is a really nice beer. I like this a
pretty
lot.
solid.
There's no pickle in it. It's not slushy.
I mean, those are detractors, but I mean, all in all, it's pretty good still.
No, this is a really excellent beer. And then we've got a double IPA from Backfish Brewing called Defying Gravity that we're gonna open that in a little bit here too. Thank you very much for bringing these to us, Andy. We really appreciate it.
We
The
were
rest of the
supposed to
table's ready
wait
for drinking.
on the opening of the double IPA.
No, you can. No, I just hadn't opened mine yet. I was too busy ruining
good.
my palate with
With
pickles.
the pickle beer.
Yeah.
Hey. So
Double IPA will
next
wash that
up,
Next up, so let's talk about this.
Step in this one.
I'll preface this by saying we skip a lot of recent happening subjects that could be talked about because they have the potential to go south on us and really make people angry
Can we
at
go
us.
with these comments and opinions are not those of our sponsors or normal employers?
Well, see, that's the beauty. We don't have any sponsors yet.
Yes.
Other than Cunny Mints. We still got
or-
Cunny Mints that sponsors us, but that's only the older listeners are going to remember that one.
or the views of Stubby or Texas Brewing Inc.
Right.
If you want Stubby's opinion, he'll give it to you.
So I just want to bring this up and throw this out there, but partially because I don't feel like I'm part of this let's be outraged at everything culture that we've got, where every time anything mildly offends anybody at all, I hop on board like let's do away with it. But this one in particular kind of struck me. So we've got a local beer company here. It's a small brewery called Manhattan Project Beer Company.
They don't even have their own building yet. They're that small.
They have
Their
basically
tap
a
room's supposed to be opening
nuclear
next month.
theme, and not really even just nuclear. When you're talking Manhattan Project, you're talking nuclear weapon themed brewery. They've got beers called Half-Life and Necessary Evil and Plutonium 239
Wait,
and that
is
kind
one
of
of them
thing.
actually called Necessary Evil?
Necessary Evil.
I
Is
did not
That's
know
a
that.
great
Yes.
Pilsner.
Yeah, so they released a beer a while ago called
Last year.
Bikini Atoll, and it's a Goza, and they've re-released it recently. And for those of you that don't know, back in the mid-40s to mid-50s, the U.S. conducted numerous nuclear tests in the Marshall Islands. The Bikini Atoll was one of them, where we tested one of our massive hydrogen bombs that was 1,000 times as big as the Hiroshima or Nagasaki bombs. And basically, we displaced a whole entire island population and gave them all cancer and everything.
No,
and
we
that was
didn't
Bikini Atoll.
We didn't give them cancer until we told them they could move back after.
No, there was a lot of them that suffered radiation burns from the explosion
Oh, okay.
and all that. I mean, it was a pretty bad deal. So I really think that the Manhattan Project was just naming this because it fits in with their naming theme. I don't think they had any malicious intentions on this or anything like that. But the Marshall Islands found out about this, and they're pretty pissed about it.
As one might be.
Man, I'm so blind. I'm an old
You
guy.
want to read this one?
So the Secretary of Health and Human Services from the Marshall Islands wrote them a letter saying, hey, this is a really screwed up situation around here. A lot of people still have cancer. Everybody's had a family member who's died, and we don't feel like it's really appropriate for you to trivialize what was done to our nation here by naming a beer after it. And Manhattan Beer Project's response to that was, and I'm going to read this verbatim, our beer named Bikini Atoll was not created to mock or trivialize the nuclear testing that took place in the Marshall Islands. Through our brand and naming, we are creating awareness of wider impacts and implications of the United States nuclear research programs and the pivotal moment in world history that is often forgotten. We're sharing this because we've received significant harassment and death threats. This is the only statement that we'll make, and we will take no further action in this matter. So basically, we're going to continue making this and calling it that. And the claim is that the intention of naming it that was to raise awareness about the Bikini Atoll.
See, and I guess I'm skewed by this because I love the guys at Manhattan Project. I think they do some of the best beer in the area. They're some of the nicest people when they come into the shop. So I read this and I totally, like that first sentence, I get it. I believe that they didn't mean to mock it.
I do believe that they didn't mean to do it.
It's that second part where it's I think what you said, the awareness part. Well, I hadn't, and maybe because they aren't open yet, they are still about a month and a half from being into their own building. Maybe when they get to their own building, they've
they've
push
had
more
packaged
of that.
beer on the shelf for a while. They are a brewery.
And yes, but I mean, maybe when they get their own tap room and stuff, it'll promote some more of that other stuff that they're talking. So
But
who knows?
I read that and immediately went to their website. I'm like, oh, well, obviously people have just overlooked that they're promoting awareness. So I'm like, I didn't know they were doing that. So I looked at their website, and there's descriptions of what their beers taste like and what their practices and their history of their group. But there's nothing about history of the United States or the things that are
So
related
you're
to the
saying
names.
this is more of a recent damage control
That's
spin
what it-
doctoring kind of thing?
That's what it looked like off here. I was ready to support them. I'm like, I mean, I've always been a history buff personally, an American history buff, and World War II history buff.
Right.
So I knew about all these names of things already. And
Yeah, I also history and like I understood all the references, the names, but I mean, I just don't see why is this big of a deal? Honestly, I mean,
and the death threats and stuff.
Yeah,
you can be offended.
Well,
the death
absolutely,
threats.
that's totally unwarranted. Yeah.
absolutely,
yeah,
I agree.
that's-
But if this is something that offends you to the point where you don't want to drink their beer, don't buy their beer.
Yeah.
It's that simple. The market will sort itself out. If you don't care, then go buy their beer.
Well,
It's
the people that are really hurt by it are not people buying beer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're people who have watched their loved ones die. There's people still alive today that were taken from their home and can never go back because it's irradiated to a point where it's actually still more radioactive than Chernobyl.
Right.
So that's the only reason I wanted to bring this up is just because I feel like it's one of those things where I think sometimes you just got to say, okay, oops, we didn't mean to do that, and kind of move on it. And it's one of the it's all over beer news all over the internet. So at any rate, that's my opinion on it.
Yep. So our next topic of the day, now that we've finished stepping in things.
Yeah, so let's get to the Denton County Homebrewers Guild.
Okay.
So why don't y'all talk to us about? Yeah.
Oh, well, are we
Well,
not going to skip over the
yes,
back
we're going to
debate?
skip over that.
Because I thought that was a great.
Okay. Well, time allowing, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to it. And I thought it was a
Circle
cool one,
back.
too. So, yeah. I want to make sure we give these guys their due time. And
No,
if,
definitely,
If they
definitely.
run long and we miss that, that's no big deal. But I don't want to shorten what we're doing with them.
I just saw that pop there. I was like, ooh, that is.
Right?
Because
Yeah.
I get
Right.
asked that a lot in the shop. So cool.
Nobody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah,
This is
no.
terrible radio.
Exactly.
So, all right. Go ahead, guys. Ready? Go.
Well, hey, my name's Brian. I'm a member of the Denton County Homebrewers Guild. Recently, I've kind of been the competitive event coordinator for the group. We're a homebrew club like many others that you guys are members of and have run across throughout, but we're obviously, because of the name, you can tell, primarily based in Denton County up in Denton, Texas. We've been around for about 7, 8 years now, something like that, as an organized group. 2012.
2012 is when we started.
Got 4 of our members up here with us. And we have something, I mean, that's what we do. We're just like any other club. We get together for monthly meetings and bottle shares, and judging each other's beers and encouraging each other and
Bottle
learning from
shares.
each other's.
Brandon, you fail.
It's a typical homebrewing club like you might be aware of with anything you're at. So if you're in the Denton County area, particularly around Denton, first Sunday of every month, we meet at Denton County Brewing Company just off the square. That's where we're at 4 p.m. Come up, join us, learn more about us. We'd like you to join the group, try your beers, try our beers. And it devolves into drunken debauchery, so to speak, just like every other homebrew club meeting does there towards the end, So it's a good time. We get together and just enjoy companionship and fellowship and enjoying each other's beers and the love of homebrewing.
Also include we're a family club, so bring kids, bring wives, bring everybody.
Yeah.
Bring kids, wives.
The debauchery part was a joke. That's not really.
Well, I guess
What
you'll
we're
just
about.
have to show up to a meeting and find out for yourself,
So how many members do you all have right now? Maybe you already said that. No,
I think active, showing up to every meeting, we're probably, about 10 to 12-ish, something like that.
Yeah,
And
we've got
yeah,
close
overall.
to 35 active members, but
Rotating in and out.
really active
on a-
members probably about 12.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Baptist church, the
Yeah.
roster is 1,000, but there's only about 10 people. who
That's
show
right.
up.
A lot
Yeah,
of guys
well, we have
gone
the same
on.
thing in our club too, where it's
Right.
that's probably about the same percentage we run for
Right.
meetings and events.
Well, and
and that
Denton's
kind
a
of thing.
college town, so a lot of guys they kind of come through and then leave. And a number of the people that have been in the club through the years, the really passionate ones, are off doing professional brewing now. So,
Yeah, several of our members have moved on to professional brewing.
That's a common
endeavors.
affliction these days.
And
Yeah.
some of them have come back from professional brewing
yeah,
endeavors.
that's what I
Also
thought.
Gunner there. So, it's a good cross section of the community, of our community anyway. So if you live up in our community and you're part of the community and involved in homebrewing and have never been at a club style activity and want to hang out with other people who do, we're there. We invite you to come join us.
So let me ask you this: you've been around long enough that you've got several years where the homebrewing world has changed a lot in that period of time. What's the biggest change you've seen amongst your membership from when you started to now?
One of the biggest changes, obviously everybody moving more into all grain, as
Yeah,
most people
for
do.
sure.
Me personally, I started homebrewing it's nearly 20 years ago, back when you were still buying, kit and kilo kind of can stuff,
Drilling
John
the
Bull-
holes in the bottom
John
of buckets
Bull and all that,
yeah.
and the yeast pack was under the lid, all that kind of stuff. But I did it kind of off and on, not seriously, just as I could have time. And then as my career and married life and everything kind of settled in, where I had more time at home to do things, I started getting really heavy into homebrewing about 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I quickly made the jump to all grain, just like the reason everybody else does, so you can start controlling the different aspects, different levers to start dialing in your beers, things like that. So, that's one thing is I've seen that the amount of equipment that you don't have to make yourself necessarily. We're not drilling holes in the bottom of 5-gallon buckets, and you can make great beer with these measurements. Don't get me wrong, people did it for years. And the cooler. There's so much more equipment that's specifically manufactured, purpose built for making good beer from start. And then of course just the advent of knowledge on the internet, podcasts like y'all's. Things like, this stuff really, I think, has a good positive impact on the community, and I appreciate it from a more experienced side, and I hope that the newer people understand that the amount of education and knowledge and good equipment and all the stuff that you can just walk into a shop and get all of that hand delivered to you right there was so much not like that 10, 15, 20 years ago. It was, hacking your way through the weeds and trying different things and modifying this and jury rigging that. It was just a wild,
Baling
wild
wire,
west kind of,
chewing
kind of
gum.
thing. And there's something to be said for that, in that you learn the reasons why you're doing things. So when things do go wrong on brew day, you know what you can try to do to fix it and what the end result you're trying to get to. So there's something to be said for coming up that hard way, but still anything we can do, because people have said homebrewing is kind of a dying hobby, or it's at least not as a popular hobby as it used to be, maybe necessarily.
I think
in the
we're
past.
leveling off.
I don't
is
know if
what
that's
we're doing.
true. I think it's more of that, but anything we can do to lower the barrier for entry to get more people into it, I'm all for.
Oh, yeah.
So
How many people in your club are younger, only been homebrewing for a year or two?
probably less than 2 years, probably about 6.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm amazed these days by the people that have been brewing for a year or two that are putting out stellar beer.
Yeah,
I
there's some really shockingly
really
good
soon, yeah.
beers coming from people that weren't even drinking, when we started brewing, maybe not even in high school,
Right.
and yeah, they're
Well,
great.
drinking or in high school? Because
That's a good point.
I mean, I would never drink before the. Anyway.
Don't incriminate yourself here, all right?
Well, the statute of
It's all right. This
limitations.
is
I don't know what you
know.
did
Yeah.
in high school,
Yeah.
so I mean,
This is a safe space. No one listens to this show.
Oh yeah, they do.
The FCC is listening.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that's really struck me from the shop too, is that people bring things in, and there's people that like Chris that walk in and just go all grain from their very first batch, and
Like a
it's
back pay from the
amazing
VA.
to me how quickly they get good. Because of the equipment you're talking about, and because of the resources that are available. I think we've moved past a point too where at one point there was so much information available on the internet that was not good that you really had to know how to sort through it. And now I think there's more quality information available. There's less. I won't say it's all
There's
good,
less
but there's
garbage and
less
noise.
garbage out there than there used to be. Yeah.
Well, as
and-
more and more people do it, and just scientific method things prove out over
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah. So what led y'all to decide to host a competition, and what led y'all to do a British beer competition?
well, so the way that kind of came about,
Brian.
Yeah, we as members of the club, we've gone and enjoyed and participated in the events you guys and y'all's clubs have been putting on for years. Ozaptis and Blue Bonnet and things across the country, things like that. And several of our members started getting more and more into the judging side that goes along with the competition side. We've got seven BJCP
Yeah, but
certified.
About 2 years ago, all of us got together and were a little unhappy with the score sheets we were seeing, and we figured that the only way to fix it was to actually get into judging and learn. And so
That's excellent.
we contacted James Lalon, actually one of our members did, and several members of Cap and Here came up and taught a BJCP class. And when we finished that class, Brian looked at us and said, "Why don't we have a competition now that we've got 7 or 8 judges?"
That's
in
kind of
membership?"
our way to kind of give back, so to speak. We've enjoyed y'all's events.
So I like that you're able
we
to
wanna do our
pinpoint
own.
exactly who and when it happens, so that in a year or two, when you're looking for somebody to lynch, you'll know exactly who to go back to. And
We've got pictures and everything.
you can hold somebody accountable for deciding to carry on with this.
So
I've-
just a preference. I just brought a beer to drink.
I
It's
was
not
really-
that great of a hef. I
was about to
think
say,
it lacks some banana, lacks some body.
I really
So
like that
it's-
you brought in particular a flaw beer. because-
I mean, it's really it's not
Let's
that
circle
great.
back
but-
around and
yeah,
talk
yeah.
to this. Talk about this in a minute.
Yeah, so just it's not that great. I know it's not that great.
That's fine.
Well, it doesn't taste like pickles, so.
that's true.
So
that's
it's
true.
a plus. No, so I'm intrigued by your competition because I was looking up. I don't brew a lot of British beers,
Okay.
but I saw a New Zealand Pils,
Yeah, it's
and my first thought was how many people are going to brew that, so I have a good chance of placing if I do a solid one. And then secondly, I looked in the style and I was like, hey, that's something I think would kind of be cool. I
Yeah.
might do just for fun.
so my thing on that, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm a history guy. I think of the British beer, British beer and the British brewing tradition is actually the original American brewing tradition before the German brewers immigrated over here and brought their techniques and their ingredient style and their way of doing things, which are great. And I love German beers. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I've always really enjoyed British beers. I enjoyed, just the maltier side of things. I enjoy the lower ABV, the pub culture that comes
Yeah.
with British beers of after work. That was the original social media. Let's go to the pub. Let's have 6, 7, 8, 9 pints of lower, relatively speaking, ABV beers and still be able to walk home and make it home and get up and go to work the next day. So, it's just something that's always fascinated me personally, and that's the style of brew that I like to make a lot of at home. I also explore my family history. I've got a lot of Scottish in my family, so I love Scottish ales. I brew a lot of those.
So maybe it's better Nigel didn't show
No,
up. tonight.
Nigel and I have actually been talking quite a bit about that, and
It's a
yeah,
trap.
it's kind of a friendly rivalry kind of
It's a
thing
trap.
going on right now.
But you have a friendly rivalry with
Yeah,
Nigel?
yeah,
That's
Nigel-
kind of
yeah.
amazing.
No, see, the thing is,
That's
is
not a
he's
thing.
he's British. He's English. He's English British, and they're just so damn polite. Whereas I'm Scottish. We just don't care. Well, you know.
Do you know a different Nigel than we know?
Yeah, maybe. See, that's why I was hoping he was here so I could start seeing some shoes fly across the room and all that. But you know, you know, it's good to make friends with people like that, though, because then when they go to, you know, overseas to visit family and come back, they mule beers back for you.
Yeah,
Very
very
true.
true.
I listened to the episode y'all did about that, and I was kind of jealous I wasn't here for that. So
Well, I got to tell you, all joking aside, we give Nigel a hard time a lot around here, but the effort and expense that he's gone to bring us those beers has given me, for one, a love of them that I never would have had otherwise, and an understanding of them that you just cannot get without having them fresh.
I've had friends that have, you know, muled fresh examples of you know, various things, Fullers and things like that back to me, and that's where I really started getting into it and loving it. It's not all oxidized and uber malty and Fuller's ESB. While a great beer is not a real ESB, you know, try an actual ESB style like a lot of the other people, you know, things like that. Yeah. So. You know, British milds, are, you know, a nice little low alcohol, but still full of malty flavored beer. You know, there's it's an underappreciated overall arcing style of beers.
Well, it's just not understood, I don't think, and that's what's driven me. I'm like you. I brew a lot of English beers. That's probably my favorite to brew, and for me, when you hit one exactly right, man, that is that's the sweet spot, and I love it. Yeah. And you just can't go out and buy it. You know, I don't. I love IPAs. I don't ever brew IPAs because I go down the store and buy. Which is kind of interesting because
you know you've been brewing for a long time too. When we kind of first started brewing, I'm brewing these beers because I can't get them over here. And now we can get a lot of great German beers and we can get a lot of great American craft beers that emulate those styles. But we've kind of circled back to, or we're back to, I need to brew this because I can't get a fresh example of this here.
Or with Belgian beers, it's a hell of a lot cheaper to brew them than to buy them.
Sure, absolutely right, yeah.
Well, and one of the other downsides to home brewing is that people bring you beers and they tell you that this is, say, an ESB, and you think, I don't like them. And then you try one that's real, and you're like, oh, I do. Just, just didn't like the one that was given to me before. Yeah.
Well, and it goes a lot to what we've talked about for a while, especially with the older guidelines. That was the 08 guidelines. A lot of them were based off of people tasting old and degraded beer and basing their styles off of that. So people were trying to brew beer to taste like that. And so they were successfully brewing oxidized old beer.
It was so, like I said, I'm a fan of Scottish beers, and it was so disappointing. Peat smoke. Oh God, just.
Oh, you and I need to form our own club.
Stop it! No. If you want, you want to get a still and make some scotch, or well, it can't really be scotch because we're in Texas, but that's fine. But don't put peat smoke malt in a damn Scottish beer. It does not belong.
Did we just become best friends?
Did this happen? Are we besties?
Do you want to go practice karate in the garage?
So that was. I had the idea of, we should do something for the homebrewing community in general to give back kind of what we've gotten out of it. And so I had the idea, let's do a competition. And you look at the competitions around there, and there's not a British one. And there's definitely not a British one up in our area. So I brought it to the club. I was like, hey, guys, why don't we do that? And they're like, hey, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't you put some ideas together on paper and come back in the next meeting or two? And so I did that. I did a little guideline and here's what I think we should do, and imitation being the best form of flattery. I looked at events y'all had put on, and Blue Bonnet had did, and kind of made the start of a quasi-rule sheet, to how we were going to do this competition, and brought it to the club, and they're like, great, this looks awesome. You're in charge.
Yep.
Well,
be careful what you ask for, right?
That's right.
You've done all this work.
Yeah,
Congrats.
so and on the one hand, I appreciate the faith the club has had in me to let me do this and kind of run with it and put me in charge of it. But I got a tremendous amount of support from everybody in the club, and especially the guys here. We've got a competition committee together, and we're doing that. They got the website up now live this week. We're doing the registration for it through Reggie Beer, which there's a link on the website, which is texasredcoat.com. You can find all that stuff there. There's some other members of the club up here with me. I've been kind of taking all the mic time, but Gunnar Johnson is our IT guy, and John is our secretary for the competition, and T. Michael is our head judge over there. So, I don't know if you guys have anything y'all want to say about the event or how we're going to do things or anything like that.
No, I think it's a really good idea. Again, I can really side with the emphasis on a session beer. I think beers are great. I'm glad the American understanding of craft beers is growing, but at the same time, what I see is IPAs get the hops up, get the ABVs up, and I can really appreciate the fact that we're trying to do something to really create an understanding of session beers, because I mean, it's like Brian said, it's like the pub thing. You want to go have several beers in a row and get up the next morning without a headache.
Yes.
Session beer does not have to mean low flavor.
No.
Right.
Too many people make that wrong interpretation.
You know,
I chose
session
Brewed
IPAs
IPA.
did that to everybody.
Yeah.
They all think, oh, that's got to be watery if it's a session beer.
Well,
Actually,
if you've
really
ever
like the
been
one we had
to Salt Lake City, you know the law of the land in Utah is 4% beer. But I tell you what, I've been there on business trips, and they turn out some fantastic 4% beers that have tremendous flavor. You know, so
It's more
Bravo
challenging to
session
do. It's a whole different set of challenges in brewing low ABV
yeah.
beers as to
Exact-
brewing
you know.
high ABV. Personally, I always used to my home brewery name for a long time was Heavy on the Moon Brewing, because it was high gravity brewing. I brewed everything at 8%. I brewed an ESB, it was 8%. Period. Because I didn't get to brew real often, and it lasts longer when it's that. These days, I want something 4.5%, 5% on top, because I want to have a couple and
That's,
be
if I
all right.
go over 6, I'm like, that's a very rare
yeah,
thing.
same
you
with
know?
same with me. Yeah.
See,
yeah.
and I usually brew a higher gravity stuff, but I want to say my last 4 beers have been under 5.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I take that back. My last 6 or 7, I've done 1 porter. Everything else has been more sessionable. I think it's that progression. I think we've talked about it through both craft beer drinking and home brewing. You kind of you want
there's an arc
big,
to
big,
it,
big,
yeah.
big, and then you're like, well, I want to be able to go home and drink more than a beer.
Well, I mean, look at how. Okay, so you see how the styles are evolving. Like we're just talking about Brute IPA. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going back to a lighter, drier. Still hoppy, because that seems to be a thing, but styles continue to evolve and grow and change as people's tastes change and education and
I think that's the biggest thing.
all
Styles
this stuff.
continue to grow.
Styles continue to grow and and change and modify and evolve. So,
Tyler in the booth there, he's working on a session hazy IPA, because that's something because he loves hazy IPAs, but you can't get one under 7%.
yeah, they're all big,
you know.
yeah.
So he's kind of working on putting something together right now that's a 4.5, 5% ish, give or take. A 4%. Hazy IPA.
Utah approved.
So the other aspect of this that I really like is the judging side of it, because I think you'll end up with better judging with lower ABV beers.
well, I can tell
Excellent
you,
point.
T. Michael and myself just this past weekend, we went and helped the North Texas Homebrewers Association guys with their Limbo Challenge. We sat in and helped do some judging on some of their beers, and that was really nice. We judged 2 flights of 10, so 20 beers in an afternoon, and we were fine. I mean, yeah, granted, you're taking sips off of 4-ounce tasters. You're not drinking full beers, but still, it was like, this was an enjoyable experience. I was able to wake up and go to work the next day, and
Well, and I've
wasn't
judged
issue or
double
problem.
IPAs before, and I feel like the later in the flight, there's some fatigue and also a little bit of fuzziness in my head that I'm not judging as well at the end of that flight.
you're not
as I
on
am
top
at
of
the
your
beginning.
game at that point.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and
I've
so
judged Belgians and started with
Yeah.
a 6-year-old man judging with me and ended up with a sorority girl. On the other side of the table, so.
What competition is this?
I don't know. Sign me up.
it's when the benefit of the beer turns bad, right? Yeah. So, how many entries do you have so far? Are we into the entry window? Or?
We just opened the entry window this week, so we're low right now.
I have 2,
Okay.
but I haven't paid yet.
Okay.
Um,
So where can
Yes,
people
yes,
turn in their
indeed.
beers? Where can they send them if they're outside of the territory here?
So we have talked with and worked with all the local homebrew shops in the area, Texas Brewing Inc.
And that's all of them.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
all
right.
you need to know.
you can look at the other 2.
No, go ahead and say
Okay,
where
I
they can
wasn't
drop
sure
them
how
off at.
far
Yeah,
we're allowed to
yeah.
go.
Go ahead
So
and say it.
Brewhound over on the other side of Fort Worth, and Kelly over at
At a homebrew headquarters. up in
Homebrew headquarters
Richardson?
thing,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And then
Homebrew-
where do they mail them to if they want to mail
they
them
can
to?
mail them to
Yeah.
those locations.
Okay.
And care of Redcoat Challenge. Or,
Do
sorry,
you have
Mel-
any specific instructions? Because
it's
have
all on the website. You can look at all the
Right.
instructions, and it's it's the common
Don't
pack
put
your
it in a
beers
six-pack
right.
holder.
Yeah, you those if you need instructions, they're on the website for you.
The reason I've brought that up is because we've had to change our procedures some with Blue Bonnet in the last years, where we don't want people bringing in their entries in 6-pack carriers because it's too hard to handle.
Yeah.
Right.
You end up with pallets of beer that are in 6-pack holders, and they're very difficult to get from one location to the other. So it is important to go and read the guidelines on these things on websites and pack your beers correctly, because for people, this is all volunteer work, and people checking it in, having to deal with shoddy packing and you not
And broken
following the
bottles because
instructions
of-
and broken bottles and all that stuff. It just makes it hard on volunteers who are volunteering their free time to do this kind of thing.
That is one thing I've learned is having to learn how to ask people for help, so to speak, about hey, I need some help doing this because I can't do it all, and everybody else can't do it all. That's why we put a committee together to do this, and it's amazing. Which a lot of that we learned from, honestly, you guys and all y'all's different events and stuff, volunteering and helping and watching, and it's amazing how much work actually goes into one of these things.
I was amazed the first time I helped.
If you have just sent your beers in for a competition and have never actually helped do any part of the event, I highly, highly encourage you to go to an event and volunteer just as a steward to carry beers around or help
for
unpacking
check-in.
check-ins.
Check-in is amazingly complicated
You-
for some
you
of these
don't
things.
have to do the judging part if you don't feel your technical abilities are good enough. But just go and help with some of the grunt work. You have no idea how much that means to the people putting on these events.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can say with this is Chris running multiple competitions, do not use packing peanuts.
Yes,
We
please
don't like you.
Never
When
use
y'all
packing peanuts.
We don't like you. Bubble wrap is wonderful.
Paper.
And
Ziploc
multiple
baggies.
Ziploc baggies
Yeah.
are wonderful.
Anything
Just peanuts are
fluid should be in
terrible.
a Ziploc baggie, and
Yes.
a bunch of wadded up newspaper. Just take all the space out so it's not going to shift around and things like that.
And for the love of God, just use a regular bottle, please. The next person that sends in a flip-top bottle to a competition, I'm going to track them down and choke them to death.
We don't accept that. So it's again in the guidelines, in the rules. We don't
Wow,
accept
that's-
flip top bottles.
That's awfully violent. Brandon.
It's a super easy
I-
thing to,
I
and it's
totally
in the
get it.
rules of every competition. And every competition you check in, you stand there around an entry and go, should we disqualify this guy or should we let
100%.
these things go? And you end up making
Letting it go.
either making accommodations for somebody who just completely ignored your rules, or disqualifying
Then you're
somebody
an
who put a
ass.
lot of work and expense into bringing these beers to you and just didn't follow one direction. It's a really dumb thing to do. So just use a regular 12-ounce bottle, like Stubby's always said. For competition, buy a new bottle.
Yeah, I highly recommend. I'll tell you that from that's something I learned a lot this last weekend, judging some of these lighter beers. Use a fresh, brand new bottle if you at all possibly can, because you get one small little speck of wild yeast or whatever, and you crack open a nice, beautiful, British ordinary bitter, and it looks perfect. Nice little pour on it, not too overly carbonated. Nice little caramel coloring. This is going to be good. And then you sniff and you're like, what is that? And you get a little taste and it's like, phenolic. Nope. And Tim, I was sitting there with Tim judging beers. He'll attest to this. I was like, nope. I just put, it's amazing how much effort people will put into the grain bill and the recipe and buying $5,000 worth of equipment, but you won't
cheap reusable bottle.
Yeah, cheap reusable bottle, or you won't sanitize properly or clean your stuff. I mean,
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Sanitizing and cleaning, if you haven't heard this already, sanitizing and cleaning is the vast majority of what brewing really is about successfully.
And all the pro
that
brewers
regimen
would
right. They
reinforce
will.
that
They
too.
will. It's sanitizing, cleaning, sanitizing, cleaning, sanitizing, cleaning. Because
I
it
had
takes
somebody-
one little small thing not clean on a bottle, and that beer is ruined. And then that may be the only bottle that's ruined out of that batch. But if that's first round, the other two 50-point beers you have sitting in the bottle over there at the stewards group is not going to advance through, so it does you no good.
I actually had a newer homebrewer just today ask. He's like, "How important is sanitation?" I'm like,
It's everything.
That's what I was like. Sanitation and cleaning are the two most important things.
Yeah.
You can do everything else perfect. You screw one of those up, and your beer's screwed.
Yeah.
You know. So it's one of those. That is the most important things.
I want to circle back real quick to one thing that Michael said that I want to touch on. The New Zealand Pils was in there, and I bet
which is going to be one of the few non-sessionable British
well, and I bet
beers,
no
like-
one's going to brew that, and so if I put mine in, I have a better chance of winning. I just want to make people aware of how that works with, especially with smaller competitions. Is that if you see a category like that, you think I may be one of 2 or 3 people that enter these, and gives me a great chance of winning. That's not necessarily true for a couple of different reasons. One, if they do separate out that category, and there is 3 people competing for gold, silver, bronze, you will not necessarily win a medal. And I have been part of judging where we've decided there is no gold.
Yeah.
And there's a silver and a bronze, and the third one doesn't get anything.
And I didn't understand why that was when you look at the results of like Blue Bond and stuff until you guys start getting into
Until you get in there
doing
and
into
do
one
it.
of these. You're like, oh, now I get
Yeah,
it. It makes
in
sense.
reality, what ends up happening, especially with smaller competitions like this, and with us with those AFTAs and that kind of thing, is that it just gets lumped in with another category, and so you end up still being part of a larger group. And so keep in mind that's not necessarily the case when you see something like that.
And also how our styles are divided up. Like it's on the website, you can look. But so you want to do a great New Zealand Pilsner. I mean, that's great. I'd love to try one. I've never actually had one. But it's going to be competing against anybody that also decides to enter a British Golden Ale, Australian Sparkling Ale, and an English IPA. So it's going to be in with all the what we call the Pale Commonwealth beer category. So this is a British brewing competition, a British brewing style, which includes the colonies, which is why we included New Zealand Pilsner in there.
Yeah, and kind of to go back to that point, we've been having multiple conversations about how far we're going to allow the categories to go before we condense them. And so it's been painful to go, okay, well, if there's 7, do we let it go, or do we throw it into another one? And
it's one of those things that you'll develop as the competition goes on for more than 1 year. You'll get a feel for it, and you never know how many people are going to enter in what competition. You may find that half of your entries are English IPA, and that blows up that whole category you got there, and you've got to break them out differently.
And I would love it. Please send me all the English IPA you want.
Well, and the main thing that we've decided really across the board is we want to make sure that we recognize every great beer. So if we have a small category and we're able to recognize 3 beers out of it, then we're going to try and do that. So
yeah, if you brew only 3 beers in the category and they're all good beers, they'll get medaled. We're not like trying to say, oh, there's not enough. You don't deserve a medal. If the beer is good, we fully intend to give it an award. So
I have a quick question. I know y'all, if you have too small in a category, you're going to lump in together with another category. Are y'all capping any category for an amount, or are you capping total number of entries?
Total number of entries right now, we've capped overall 150.
Okay.
That's the purchase point we were comfortable with going in at with Reggie with their software setup right now to get started. I would love to have the problem of over 150 entries to start off the first year. I don't anticipate that, but prove me wrong, everybody, please.
Well, careful what you ask for. I think 150 is a good number.
Hey, I'm not the head judge, so I don't really care.
I think you need to start caring.
Yeah, but
I am a volunteer.
But
and then adding on to that horrible problem of having too many beers.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Where can we help out after registration point ends?
Registration point with that, as far as needing more volunteers for judging, BJCP judging. Our guys got with, I think, the list from BJCP of all the local area judges. Did you guys get that?
I've got a list, and we're going to be sending out requests for help.
Right.
You can go through the Reggie.com system and sign up to be a judge. If you're not a certified or a recognized or above BJCP judge, but you've got a great palate, sign up. We'd love to pair you up with a judge.
A lot of what we need as far as volunteers is going to be kind of dependent upon how much entries we get.
Yep.
So we'll let you know.
That's really, it's one of those, I know Chris and I both are going through James LaLonde's BJCP class.
So is other Chris.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Well, Chris and Tyler in the studio. And, So a bunch of us in the shop are going through his class right now. So
so you guys will definitely need the judging for the class part, and
just the experience,
the points and all that. So I would love to have see you guys come out and give us a hand and help out with that, and we will definitely be reaching out when it comes time for that. As far as maximum number of entries, so here's how it's going to be. We want to give the most amount of people the most amount of chance to compete across the entire spectrum. We don't want one person to enter 6 different variations of British Bitter and then max out the category, and that person's guaranteed to get a medal. So what we do is we kind of try to lump them together into styles we felt were appropriate to group together. So we put all the British Bitter, ordinary, best, and strong bitter all into one category. So if you send a best bitter, it's going to be competing with an ordinary and a strong bitter, but each one will be judged according to their individual BJCP sub-style grouping. But for us, it's all the bitters are going to be grouped together into one group, and you're allowed 1 entry per group. So you're allowed 1 entry for the British bitter category. You're allowed 1 entry for the Pale Commonwealth category, which, as I previously mentioned, was British Golden Ales, Australian Sparklings, English IPAs, and New Zealand Pilsners. I can go through this whole list if you want me to, or we can.
Sure.
Okay, I don't know how much you want me to.
It's on the website too.
Yeah. Go on the website and take a look
that's
at
a lot
it.
of stuff. Yeah. So,
Texas
but
Redcoat.
basically, it's so every overall grouping you're allowed 1 entry for, and then the top beers at the end of the day for all the groupings will advance to a best of show. We'll have an overall best of show for the whole event as well. The awards will be up at Denton County Brewing Company on. Well, let me first say everything needs to be in as far as your entries by October 1st at noon. So October 1st at noon is the cutoff for any sign-ups or beers delivered or shipped or things like that. So everything has to be in by October 1st at noon so we can get this organized and knocked out for judging. But the awards will be November 9th at Denton County Brewing Company. We're still working on the time for the actual event itself, but probably something mid to late afternoon, something like that. So
So we're looking to roll it out quick, and it's going to be tight for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking this sounds like a good idea, like go ahead and figure out what you might want to brew, because you're going to have.
Which is also
gonna
great
have a
though
few
with
weeks.
lower strength.
It's
you
actually the
lower
beauty of
starting-
these
That's right.
styles.
Yeah, you can knock them out.
Ales.
So
Yep.
and they're ale. Yeah,
That's one of my
exactly.
favorite things about brewing British beers and these low ABV ones. They're done quick.
Quick turnaround, not super high cost unless you're just loading it up with
Right.
like Maris Otter or something. But
Yeah.
even then, it's not that bad.
Even
Well,
then
on
yeah.
that note, if you're a fan of Maris Otter and you're brewing a lot of British beers, try the Planet Malt. Try the Planet, because it's less expensive. I think it's better. I like it better than Maris Otter, both on the brew day side and on the flavor side. On the brew day side, I've been getting crazy efficiency with it. They're really nice big kernels. They mill really well. You get really nice big pieces of husk in there, so it lauters well.
Yep.
It's just really fantastic malt all the way around. It's less expensive. I'm sold on the Planet Malt.
Yep.
So if you're fixing to brew some
I'll
beers
give it a
for
try
this,
because I'm like I said, Scottish ales. I buy Golden Promise, and sometimes you find that stuff. It's a premium price.
and and I
for
love
that.
Golden Promise. I think this is
So
right
I
up
might-
there with Golden
okay,
Promise.
I'll
yeah.
give that a
Mhm.
shot and see
Yeah.
how it goes.
All right, real quick before we go to break, I just want to do a back to basics segment here. Mike is climbing out of his skin over here to do this because, and I agree with him. This is one I really want to just have a quick discussion on because it's a fun one. Recently, someone posted a picture of a tattoo that they got on Facebook, and it was an airlock. It was an airlock tattoo they got. It was a double bubble one, and Greg posted, it should be a 3-piece, and I thought. Personally, I'm a big fan of the double bubble ones, and there's a debate between the two, and there's pluses and minuses to each one. So I wanted to talk about that. Who likes what and why?
And it's one of those I was kind of because I get asked this daily from new brewers. They're like, "Well, which airlock?" And I'm like, "It's preference."
Get both.
Exactly. It's one of those. They're like, "Well, it's preference," and I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And it's so for me personally. I like the double bubble because you can visually see it. But if I'm going to use a blow-off tube, I like the 3-piece because I can easily stick my blow-off tube in the 3-piece airlock. You take the top and so it's kind of one of those. I'm like, I use them both.
I almost never use a blow-off tube, but I feel like a 3-piece will allow a lot more gas to blow through it without going dry.
Yeah.
Whereas a three-piece will allow a backflow of air through the bubble if you're changing temperatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing is they
Yeah.
talk a lot about cold crashing
Crash,
and it's
yeah.
sucking back in there. The double bubble is an airlock both directions.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
With a,
do you want a little bit of oxygen in there, or do you want Star San or vodka or whatever you're putting
with
in
all
there?
the little bugs that might have gotten through?
Yeah, personally, I'd rather have a little bit of oxygen in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So I like the double bubbles because of that. If it
I'm
sucks
generally
back
a
when
fan
you
of the
cold
double
crash it,
bubbler myself.
Yeah.
Also for similar reasons like what you said. The only thing I will say in favor of the three-piece is if you were the type to not try to blow off tube, you think, I'm going to let that ride, and what the hell, let's give it a shot. You know, eventually you're going to have to clean your fridge or wherever you're referring. But hey, we all go through that. That's part of the learning curve.
Yeah.
So
quarterly.
it does pull apart a little easier to clean.
Yeah.
Yes.
To clean.
Yes.
But also the cost of replacing a double, it's $1, $2, what is something like that?
$1.79.
I mean,
Yeah.
okay, it gets a little dirty inside.
I buy
All
them by
right.
the 3-pack.
Yeah.
Here's the
I'll
other
throw that
thing
out and replace it.
that I
That's
don't
fine.
like about the three-piece ones is that you actually have to make sure that you fill them to an
to the
exact
certain
level.
line.
Yeah.
Right.
If you fill them too much, the little the little plastic piece in there, it will hit the top, and the little vents won't go above the liquid
Right,
level.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now you're creating back pressure,
Right.
because it's got to then push the bubbles through the liquid and all that. So a double bubble always has the minimal amount of back pressure. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, Stubby's telling me we're running long over here.
Yeah.
This is the second note I've been
I-
passed
I-
where they
I
think
thi-
I'm doing a
think-
bad
I-
job.
I
Yeah.
think Stubby just wants to
You
get to the
know,
hard
Kinda
seltzers.
getting
I think that's what it is.
They're in there
What's going
drinking
on?
already.
Yeah, the hard seltzers are going to be gone. Except we've been watching them drink them for a couple hours.
I'd just like to point out that we would have been to the hard seltzer episode weeks ago if we weren't waiting on Stubby to keg his version of it. So,
They're in there drinking
I don't
Cedric's 10
appreciate
percenter, I think.
yeah, being
So,
hurried along.
panty
so
Rob.
there,
We're
there was
talking
one
about
other thing we have to
important things,
mention before we go to break.
which is
We're talking about our Patreons,
Yes.
our patrons, and for every $10 patron.
wait, don't no. You don't
There's a
understand
big
how this
surprise.
works, do you? Yes, all right.
Tease it.
Okay.
Tease it. Come
So-
on, draw it
Sorry,
out.
I'm not very good at teasing.
So
Oh,
for
that's the one.
Rookie move,
I'm
dude.
gonna leave
Rookie
it alone.
move.
every one of our Patreons at a certain dollar level,
No, stop. What are you
You're
doing?
even worse at this than me. I took the hint.
So we know that we have let the patrons down quite a bit lately in terms of not getting to giveaways and that kind of thing. We're going to make up for that after the break. Make sure you come back after break so you can find out what it is.
Yes.
We're going to tell you all we got some good giveaways for all y'all to reward you for supporting us. We're going to get caught up on all that. So we're going to go to break. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. Come on back, and we're going to get into hard seltzers.
Deep in those hard seltzers.
or what was it that Aaron Rodgers just called them?
She's exposing Lily to this debauchery.
Yes, she is. I mean,
I
what a
guess she's
great
been to Phish
parent.
concert.
She
Ready?
has been to Fish. All right, 3.
We're missing
2,
everyone.
All right, so
we're back.
we're back.
Welcome
And,
back from the break. Like we talked about before we left, we're about to get caught up on all our Patreon awards here, and we're going to get into hard seltzer. Everybody around here is a little bit giddy, I think, over all the seltzer that we've got.
Right.
I don't know if we've. I'm going to pick up this camera here and point it. Can everybody
got a
see
couple?
all the gallons of seltzer that we've got there waiting for us?
Plus, I've got this
Yeah.
one here.
Yeah. Plus, yeah, we've got growlers and stuff. So we've got plenty of seltzer here to talk about. Plenty of people here who have put some time into developing recipes and brewing it. So we're gonna do start to finish here. Don't think that we're just gonna say, "Hey, White Claw's pretty good. I like to drink it in the pool." We're really gonna get into some technical stuff here because this is a long time coming to do this. So
There ain't no laws when you're drinking claws.
we're already there. We're already there. That's all right. That's where we're going.
You know, I'm really disappointed we didn't have the ranch one on the table. Really, the Hidden Valley Ranch White Claw. That was what I was looking for.
So one of the reasons that I kind of wanted to get into this is because
Wait.
What?
Before
Okay.
we get
Patreon.
to the seltzer, let's
Okay.
talk
Yeah,
about our
let's do it.
Patreons here because
We're getting too drunk to remember.
So-
we are live, correct, guys?
yeah,
Yes.
we're live. So last couple months here, due to people on vacation and technical difficulties and just trying to get things together, we've not had as many shows as normal. We've also skipped over a couple of things we should have been taking care of, and we honestly we've neglected our Patreons who are really loyal supporters of ours, and we really appreciate you. So tonight we're going to reward everybody here just like we always promised we're going to do. So any of you out there who are $10 and $20 patrons, we are about to send you all free hats, so you don't have to do anything at all. You're going to get those in the mail, so just keep your eye out for that. The other thing we're going to do is anybody that's currently a $5 patron that upgrades to the $10 or $20, we're going to send you a free hat as well. And then for the next, would you say 60 days?
Yeah, the next 2 months. So
Next 2 months, anybody who joins as a $10 and $20 patron will also get a free hat. So $10 and $20, no, whether you're currently there, you're upgrading, or you're buying in there as a new patron, you're all going to get free hats. Everybody, can everybody see these cool hats, man? I got to tell you,
hats. Yeah.
every time I wear this out of the house, I get laid like 2 or 3 times. So you'll get paid back.
Outside of the house, man. That's public
It's,
sex.
it's
That's
yeah,
nice.
it just gets thrown at me. It's crazy. Now it's all guys, but whatever. I'll take it where I can get it.
Beards, so many beards.
Yeah. So the other thing we're going to do here is we're going to have a drawing for our Flying Shoe Ale. If you're not following us on Facebook, the Flying Shoe Ale is our new British Golden Ale kit that we've developed.
Yep.
This is kind of a throwback for us. We did several episodes, not several, but maybe a couple episodes on the British Golden Ales, and we spent a lot of time. Greg and
Developing
Nigel
it, yeah.
both spent a lot of time developing recipes for this. If you have never had a British Golden Ale before, this is a really excellent style. It's different than what's out there. I think if breweries started brewing this in America, it could be a really
sell.
popular style.
Absolutely.
So there's been kind of a lapse in time between when we talked about it a lot and when we finally came up with the kit. So we want to bring it up and remind you all about it. Go back, listen to that episode and some of the things we taste. I think that what Greg and Nigel came up with is really, really close to the
Yeah,
stuff
I
that
think
we
so,
got
too.
there. It's kind of the best of all worlds, where it's an English / German / American beer that has kind of the best of all
Yeah,
of it.
and if you actually read the BJCP style guidelines for that particular style, it's wrong. I'm sorry, it's just wrong. Nigel's brought back probably 20 different examples, and then also a good friend of mine brought me back 5 from it's actually a different part of England. And he was from Cornwall. So he brought me 5 different ones back from Cornwall. Yeah.
Cornhole.
And so anyway, and then I was in London, I guess about a little less than a year ago, and the BJCP is just wrong. I'm sorry, they need to rewrite it. But you have to think about it too. This style has probably developed and changed a lot since 2008. So Wasn't that the last time?
No,
that they were-
2015.
2015, but even still,
shit, that's
even-
4 years ago. I mean, a lot has
it's
changed.
yeah.
This is a relatively new style over there in terms of popularity. I think there's been some that have been around for a little while, but hell, American hops have changed a lot in 4 years. You know, so I just can't stress enough that if you've listened to us talk about any of the stuff that Nigel's brought over and you realize how much we like it, this is a beer you'll love. So go on the website, check it out. One of our $10 or $20 patrons is going to get one. We're going to do a drawing. You'll get an email, and we're going to send that out to you. It's called Flying Shoe, in honor of the time that Nigel threw a shoe at me for no damn reason. You can
Sure,
go
there
back
was a
and
good reason, but we're all too drunk to know.
no, there's not, because we listened to it, and Nigel and I discussed it afterwards, and I said, I don't know why you threw that at me. He says, I listened to it too, and I don't have any idea either.
Never mind. It was
Uh,
just
Like, is that a fucking shoe?
Right, yeah. yeah.
All I saw out of the corner of my eye is a sandal go flying at Brandon's
Right.
head, and I was rather confused on what the hell
I
just
think he
went
was
happened,
actually throwing
what
it at
went
me,
on.
and that's why he didn't remember.
Well, to be fair,
be fair.
even if I didn't deserve it at that moment,
There was
oh,
times
you
probably
deserved
did.
it.
I deserved it. Yeah. So I'm not too mad
Retroactively.
about it. You know, George Bush and I are in a special class of people now where people have had shoes thrown at them in public. So
Now, are all the kits going to have that special edition label that you showed off to us?
Yes, it'll have Nigel's little head on it.
All right.
that's
corner,
worth buying
yeah.
it right there.
Yeah, only the first 10 people that bought it.
Okay, so limited
It's a
edition.
limited
first
edition
10.
with Nigel's
right.
little head on it.
It used to be that the first time people came into this podcast, we all made them, including myself, all made them wear a big curly wig.
Yes.
And so the picture that's on there is Nigel wearing this curly wig with an excellent look on his face. And so the first 10 people to buy a kit, their kit's going to have that commemorative
We have
label
like
on there.
really weird things that disappear from here, but we won't discuss those here.
Yeah. That's
like
a
random-
tradition I think we should have kept up, personally.
Random things just disappear. I don't know if they go to some people's bedrooms or what. I don't know. It's strange. But anyway, but
Okay, so let's move on to hard
yeah.
seltzers here.
And so all the guys thought I was absolutely nuts because when it first came, to our attention, I was really interested in doing it, and I guess a lot of the guys were actually. A lot of the guys were really surprised I was actually making one. And I think the reason being is because I think it's a really good avenue for microbreweries, brew pubs, and stuff to supplement the crowd that's not into beer. So, and rather than selling other people's cider and or wine, that they can make something else that the non-beer crowd could actually drink. So. I thought this is a great way to do it.
As I was telling our Uber driver on the way down here, too, one of the things I like to do with these is use them as mixers with vodka. Because why water down your vodka with something non-alcoholic? I mean, that just seems like a waste. So I've done that going all the way back to the days of Zima, which I think is the very first hard seltzer. So let's taste these
Zima was
here.
actually a malt beverage.
So, but let's talk. I bet if you look at the labels on these, they're technically characterized as that under whatever law or whatever. But let's talk about exactly what it is these are supposed to be. So when you say hard seltzer, you're talking seltzer water.
Yeah, like
with
a
alcohol
LaCroix.
in it. Right.
Almost
Right.
like a LaCroix with alcohol, right?
So it's supposed to be a really fizzy, really plain water, and they add some flavor into it. But even I think with any of these, the flavor is always pretty subtle.
This one has big beer speak on the ingredients. It says cold fermented corn sugar.
Hey, so does
That
the
means
White
it's a
Claw.
lager.
Well, actually,
yeah.
the White Claw says
Cold
alcohol
brewed
from
sugar.
cold brewed sugar. Yeah,
That means they just mix damn sugar and water.
pretty much.
So what I'm getting from these is I still get some sugary sweetness from them, like a straight up candy sugar sweetness from these.
This one's a little sweeter.
I thought about doing this. Yes, it definitely is sweet. But I thought I forgot to do this, but I saw this in all of them as citric acid, and I
Yes.
think that would actually punch it up a little bit.
You know the
I
beauty
think
of
about
citric acid? You throw it in the keg.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to do it until the very end if you don't want. And you can do it a little bit at a time. Figure out how much you want to use. So what we got going around here is what White Claw, and then what's the other one?
White Claw, black cherry, and then we have spiked seltzer, cranberry.
What's it say? At the
There's no
top
brand
above
name
that?
on it.
Above that is the brand name.
Bon and Viv.
Bon and Viv.
I
think
don't-
the Bon and Viv cranberry tastes better than the White Claw.
I've
Bon
never
and
heard
Viv.
of this one.
That sounds
but-
like two saucy retired women that came up with the spikes. Bon and Viv.
see,
They're
this one's
selling it out at the farmer's market.
This one's stinky.
This is no doubt spring break beverage.
this is the 4.5% one, so this one's a little more sessionable.
Ooh, this one's terrible.
And that White
Yeah,
Claw
these are
tastes
not
like
real good.
Clearly
No, the
Canadian.
grapefruit. Oh my god, dude, it tastes terrible.
Oh yeah, this one's pink.
All right, let me try this. The grape. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I got to try the spiked agua fresca, which is obviously pandering to our Hispanic community.
So,
Pandering
Oh,
or
this one's
taking
pink.
advantage of?
well, have you not seen the Corona? Corona makes one. Makes
that
us
smells like candy.
It smells like Crystal Time.
This one is terrible.
It smells like Crystal Time pink lemonade.
the White Claw's not that bad.
It tastes like Crystal Light.
What's Crystal Time? Is that like a generic cross between Crystal Light and
No,
Country Time?
Crystal Time is an Oklahoma brand.
Is it?
Right around the boom towns. Yeah.
I thought it had something to do with like adding a crystal to your
No. That's a
Lemonade or
Denver brewery thing.
Okay, so this one is truly awful.
Which one's
The agua fresca one that's pink
The agua fresca.
is not
You
good
didn't.
at
You
all.
didn't
Yeah.
taste this
That
one.
tastes like
Fresca's
Crystal
like
Light.
a liquid pixie stick.
Yeah.
Yes,
Or a liquid.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Okay, the cranberry's not that great.
get a load of this one,
Which one's that there? Is that the
grapefruit one.
grapefruit?
dude. That tastes like a grapefruit that's been had a tire burn out on it.
Yeah. The Aqua Fresca tastes powdery.
So
Like
what
it
we
was
don't
obviously
have
made
here
from
is
powder.
the truly hard seltzer.
Yeah, the Trulies are good.
The Trulies are pretty good. The Trulies are a lot more of a plain water with just a little bit of like artificial flavoring in them.
Yeah.
And hops.
So
Truly
they actually use hops.
Oh,
yeah.
they use.
have hop?
I
Man-
can't taste the hops. though.
Mandarina Bavaria. I don't think we have a Truly.
You don't like that grapefruit one?
I think I like the grapefruit one better.
I like that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That's the least candy, sugary, sweet one on the table.
The cranberry one is kind of flat with a splash of cranberry in it.
Bon and Viv. I love
Bon
that
and
name.
Viv. It's like
It's your grandparent. I think you've nailed it.
Each
It's
six-pack
my
comes with
grandmother
a
and her
unicorn.
friend
right.
that are selling soap.
They put on their best wig and go down to the farmer's market on Sunday, and
Get trashed
they're
and
selling
yell at
mason
tourists.
jars of this shit.
So anyway, I think that was interesting thing about this because there's lots of people.
Oh, see, now this one's bullshit. This is 120 calories.
yeah.
What?
What's a bigger can?
I think, okay, yeah. I think the White Claws are only 100 calories.
But anyway, as I was saying, the one of the things that I think a lot of the guys were actually poo-pooing on this a lot, and but I think from a standpoint from marketability for craft breweries, if they're able to really truly do this, and it gives them another revenue of income. And
Well,
can
and-
keep people that don't drink beer around
That's
the
exactly
brewery.
right. I like to be able to take people with me to the brewery that aren't craft beer drinkers, and there's something there for them too. And you know, we can get all beer snobby about it all we want, but
taste like
if
beer.
people aren't into beer, they're not into beer, and that's just fine. I'd still like them to go with me to trivia night or play games or just hang
Absolutely.
out or whatever, and have something that they'll like. So everything doesn't have to be about being a beer purist.
Well-
There could be stuff there for people that like other things.
And I think these have a place too. I mean, I like to drink them on the beach because it's like not sweet at all, and you can drink a bunch of them, and you know.
Just hang out in your banana hammock and throw back a couple of these
Yeah,
things.
exactly.
For me,
The
it's
big
great.
pineapple hat on.
What's the ABV on these things usually running?
We're usually around 5%.
4.5, 5. So in doing research for this show, let's see, who is it? Natural Light has one that's coming out here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
And according to Natural Light's polling, they found that men, what was it, 22 to 30 prefer a 6%, 120 calorie to the 5%. So Natural Lights is going to be 6%. Pabst has one coming out that's going to be
Here's
8.
what I loved
Pabst
about
has
the
one?
natural light one is you posted to our group chat
Yeah.
that thing about the natural light, and it was obviously a photo taken at a sales meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a guy standing in front of a big PowerPoint presentation, and the top of it said that they were there to disrupt the hard seltzer market.
Well,
and I thought that was the funniest damn thing I ever heard.
And the
isn't a
great
hard
thing was that
seltzer
if you really zoomed into that picture, just some of the the stats that you could tell that they did polling, and they, this is AB InBev, so there was a lot of money spent.
That's what they're good at. Yeah.
So I know Cedric said that he had read something about how much they had sold. Where'd you read that, or how much was it?
So it's the new Nelson report that just came out for the quarter for hard seltzers. And pretty much hard seltzers whooped craft beer by almost 21% in nationwide.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
So
Yeah.
it's big. It's big here.
Yeah, I mean, well, and like I said, if very quickly you see Natural Light coming out with one, AB InBev, that using
Pabst.
that, and then Pabst.
Four Loco.
Now that Four
count as
Loco
beer
one.
either.
That was a joke.
So was it?
Oh, that wasn't real?
I don't know. They make a sour thing. on
That's
Apple
why
already.
I wouldn't, because so the thing we saw was a sour Four Loco that was blue raspberry
It wouldn't surprise
Oh,
me,
yeah,
but
seltzer, but 14%.
I don't think Four Locos they're not beers to begin with.
They're malt beverages.
They're a malt beverage, so I imagine they could probably substitute malt extract for plain sugar and not change their recipe at all.
Yeah.
Probably.
A little less.
They add $1 to it and change the label.
So none of these though really were that great.
No, these were not very good at all.
I bought
and
a-
I've had them that I liked before.
Yeah,
I
like
think
I
the
said,
Trulies.
The Trulies
what's
are my
the one they
favorite.
sell at Costco?
That's truly.
Truly.
Is
I
that
think.
the Truly one? Okay,
Okay,
that's
Truly
the one I
is
like.
Truly
yeah.
is actually manufactured by Sam Adams.
Really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would explain
Well,
it. That,
well,
that
then
one I
feel,
liked.
I feel even better about buying it.
So
Yeah,
it's the
so-
malted
It's at least
seltzer.
somewhat
I
craft.
may or may not have bought a case of that before. That's all I'm saying.
Hey,
Well, love
a
it or
mixed
hate it,
12
it-
pack,
It sounds like they're going to be an impact of some kind on the market.
Oh,
Yep.
absolutely.
They're coming.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be a topic of conversation one way or another.
Here's the thing I have about comparing it to craft beer. It is the implication when you compare it to craft beer is that it has some effect on the craft beer market. These are not pulling anyone away from craft beer. People that are into craft beer are still drinking craft beer. These are pulling someone away from
Cocktails.
Bartles and James, or some
Cocktails,
shit
maybe.
like that, or cocktails or whatever. Yeah, yeah. It's
Or-
so. It
Do they even sell Bartles and James anymore?
I don't know what
Actually,
that is.
do.
man.
I saw some at the hotel the other night. At the hotel bar. I thought it was interesting.
I had at the hotel bar, you're drinking wine coolers.
So I think really
That's
what
ballin'.
what we saw here is that there's a pretty wide range of what these are, from being real sugary, sweet. Someone said pixie stick in a cup.
Yeah.
That the couple
No,
of
that
these
one, yeah. I don't
were
think they're
definitely
supposed
like
to.
that.
To me, I don't think that really is what a hard seltzer is supposed to be. I don't think it's supposed to be sweet. I think it's supposed to be dry. I mean, it's supposed to be like a carbonated water. With
I tend
some-
to agree with you on that. I think the majority of them that I've had have been more like seltzer water with a little bit of flavor to them. And so now we're going to taste one from our local brewery, Collective Brewing here. Is there a description on this? What does it say?
This is Blood Orange Collective.
Blood
Farm.
orange. This thing is clear as water.
So it's one of those. I know from talking to Ben, their brewer. Him and I have been talking about this since he first poured me one a couple months ago. So I know that they've tried different things. Stubby mentioned the citric acid. That was something that he had told me that he's used. They've actually now started using champagne yeast to dry it
taste
out.
it.
So it's one of those. They've done several variations of this, and these are kind of some of their
Okay.
improved versions.
So I'm going to start off by saying I love the guys over at Collective, and I love their beer. This tastes medicinal to me.
Well, it tastes. You know what it tastes like to me? It tastes like alcohol.
Yes, it tastes
Yeah,
like alcohol.
it
yeah,
does.
alcohol.
It tastes like white wine to me.
What's the ABV on this? Do we know?
4.5?
4 or 5.
Yeah, it tastes like booze.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the thing.
mean,
that's
even
the
the
thing.
sm-
There's
even the
nothing there to
smell's
mask the alcohol flavor in it, and and I guess medicinal is the wrong word. You're right. It does taste like alcohol. You could
Yeah.
just taste alcohol in it,
It's like vodka almost.
which
It
is
smells
not
like
necessarily
vodka, yeah.
bad.
Vodka.
No, it's not bad.
It's
It's just vodka. Yeah.
But you can smell the alcohol in it. You can taste the alcohol.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this
Slight bready, yeasty.
A little bit. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
It might be good to take something like this and experiment with various flavors. Like if you had little
I
bottles
think
of
this
different
would
flavors,
support some flavors.
this would be a great base.
So that
This
was the
one's
blood
more like
orange.
a mineral water, almost
Yeah.
like a
A little bit of
Perrier
minerally
or-
flavor
That
to
might
it.
be
Yeah.
something kind of interesting they could do. Just make a base seltzer, your local brewery.
Topo
and they have the
Chico with
different-
some
the
stuff. in it.
different flavorings out there,
Yeah.
so you can
Right,
custom
I,
mix.
I was looking for
whatever
something-
you want. That'd
I
be
was thinking of
interesting.
doing something like that at home, and just
Yeah.
try and get a bunch of different flavors of things and just make base beers and change them up.
Yeah, so we were at Cowtown for their
Yeah.
beignet pairing the other day, and they were serving their Miami Vice, which is a Berliner Weiss, and they had some raspberry syrup to pump into it, which was great.
But the real question: how were the beignets?
The beignets were fantastic.
Amazing.
It was
They
really
looked
cool.
freaking awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, I know the beer's solid, but
Let's not get off topic too far.
yeah, but
Because we will.
something like this with the syrup pump in it, like that, like you do with the Berliner Weiss, would be really
a
cool.
traditional Berliner, yeah.
So now we've got the raspberry lime. See, that to me, immediately when I see that, I think that would support the flavors in this a little bit more.
flavors, yeah.
I need to drink this and pour it.
Down the hatch, bro.
Drink up.
Stop
Important to stay
flapping my
hydrated.
gums. All right,
It's
here we
just
go.
water. It's nothing.
Do we have any idea how they're brewing this
Hey, can you guys get us some more cups?
in terms of
give us some trade
ingredients?
secrets?
In terms of
Cups.
ingredients, or is that
Water.
Some up there?
From what I've been told, water, corn sugar, yeast nutrient,
that one's much better.
a little bit of citric acid. I mean, there's
Much better.
there's not a whole lot that goes into this.
You know what this
Because
makes
bi-
me think. Actually, now that I taste this one, and I think this one's so much better. I think maybe the orange just didn't blend
Go
well
well,
with
yeah.
the flavor in the other one, because this one is much cleaner. This is a lot more of a seltzer water with a little bit of flavor in it. I
Yeah,
think.
this one tastes a lot more like a slightly less fizzy LaCroix.
So maybe it was just that's exactly right. So maybe it was just the
Ooh,
blood
that one
orange
is.
flavor.
That one is a lot.
That's
better.
really excellent. I like that a lot actually.
that raspberry lime is that's pretty good there. Wah wah.
The big reveal and nothing.
So we're pouring
Give
a
it
couple
full
of
trigger pull.
a
you
couple of Stubby's versions or the shop versions. I see now Austin Jones is watching. I think this
Ned
might
Foyer.
be well, one of these here is Austin's version.
Yep.
So what's this first one here? We got the raspberry
This
one.
is a raspberry one, yeah.
Okay, so this is the one we have the recipe here for. This is the one that Stubby brewed, and he actually
So one of the things that I thought maybe people might be able to get in trouble with this is as a brewery not using actually any grain or malt. So we have this stuff at the store. This Munton Super Pale.
Can you put the
And-
camera on me real quick here so I can
And
hold this
it's
up?
1.3 Lovabond. You can see it just has a hint of color to it. It's
It's very
little.
similar to just a blank with just a little bit of yellowness to it.
Yeah. But anyway, I thought that I would be preemptive in case the TABC came down on these guys using this stuff. That we could make something with barley.
Yeah, I'm getting it too, Brandon.
I don't know. I'm
know
kind
what that
of
is.
but Brandon has a look on his face that I haven't
That's
tried
awesome.
it. I haven't tried it yet.
That's awesome. That's not even just good. That's really good.
We tried some of it in the shop as we were carboning it up and stuff, and
I got to tell
we
you,
really enjoyed
you can drink it without flavoring in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So does this have flavoring in it?
Yes, it has raspberry flavoring in it. Yeah.
That's really good.
So to answer Julian's question, yes, Stubby really did brew it. If you call making this brewing it.
Yeah.
No,
so
you
I actually
absolutely
mashed.
brewed it.
Oh no, he actually mashed. So yes, this is
Mashed
brewing
grains,
it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually mashed grains.
Austin's wasn't as much brewed, but he added hot water and sugar. Wait, I didn't.
So
Hot water.
Ni-
I didn't
real
use
quick
hot
here,
water in
Nigel
mine.
is texting me right now that this is the Four Loco thing is
Is
not
real.
fake. It's they are talking about seltzer with 3 times more alcohol than others. So it's
Oh yeah.
in the Four Loco way.
in the Four Loco brand, which is we want to hurt you. We want you to hurt yourself.
It's
and
Red
then,
Bull.
I was say we want you to beat your wife and then hurt yourself.
Whoa. Isn't that the
recipe?
Miller Lite tagline?
So that's what was interesting is listening to that Beeronomics. They talked about how Stella Artois in Britain had that kind of wife beater reputation and how they had to kind of change that reputation
Wow.
I knew you were
is that
gonna
the
like that
second
shit.
one?
That's really good, dude.
Yeah, it's really good. So what I ended up doing
Which one's
was
that? Is that the other flavored?
Same one. I'm still just blown away by it.
basically I mashed like 3.5 pounds or 3.75 pounds of grain. And so what I did was I just did it just like a brew in a bag, just in a muslin bag, and just steeped it for 30 minutes. Now I mashed it at really high temperature because I thought, I'd like to have some of those dextrin malt flavors still available there. And then about 2 pounds or so of corn sugar. I also wanted to put some maltodextrin in it, and the reason I put the maltodextrin in it is it would kind of give it a little more body or more mouthfeel. And if you'll also notice too, this one actually has the head stays around.
It does. It has some head retention to it.
Yeah. So whereas the other ones don't. So, and then also I put at Flame Out I put about a 1/4 ounce of a Mandarina Bavaria in it, and so it's about 2 IBUs. But think about this as well. This
get
is
hop flavor from it.
Yes. Yeah. And the good news about the hops though is that this will actually help protect your beer a little bit too.
Yep.
Keep it from getting lacto in it. So. But anyway, I thought that was kind of an interesting.
I am floored by absolutely floored by this. This is hands down, without a doubt, the best hard seltzer I've ever
You know what this tastes like?
No, I haven't tried Cedric's Super Panty Dropper yet.
So
We're
here's
going to
the
do
crazy
that
thing
soon, but
Here's the crazy thing about the first one, homebrew one that we had so far. You actually get kind of danky.
Yeah.
There's a
little
little
bit.
danky hop.
little bit.
Yeah, I think it's that Mandarina Bavaria.
And that's a 1/4 ounce of hops.
I mean,
There's not much to
there's
to hide
nothing
behind.
this is at least more approachable and recognizable to me as a beer guy per
It
se.
tastes like an actual
So freaking good.
tasty light beer.
You know what this crosses the line for me? This
so-
goes from I would brew this to have it to serve to other people to I would brew this and I would drink it.
So here's the crazy thing with the beer judge class that we just did.
Yeah.
The very first one we got, the blind taster was it Bud Light?
No, it
No,
was
Corona.
Corona
in a can.
Corona in a can, and we went, this is a really good beer. And went, oh, by the way, here it is. And went, no shit. I didn't know it tastes so good.
Yeah, it tastes
Yeah.
good in a can.
All right.
No, this is one we could give to James Lalonde and he would like.
Whoa, that's
This is light beer.
We have some more cups, or y'all want to just come
Do you
and fill
remember the
your
show
own
The
cup
Land
up?
of the Lost?
Okay, so this is basically. I did 8 gallons of it, so this other one is lemonade.
You want to explain why you did 8
Yeah,
gallons?
did you do it on purpose?
No, I didn't do it on purpose. It's because I don't know how to use Beersmith.
What's the ABV on this again?
They're 5.5.
About 5
2,
point
5.1,
five-
something.
5.3.
5.3.
And quick question on the how long have you been brewing, Stubby?
How long have I been brewing?
Yeah.
Shit, 25 years.
Okay.
Something like that.
and this has the lemon in it, you said?
Oh, this is tasty. I like this one.
No, this is the peach mango.
Okay, so this next one that we're drinking is Austin had an idea of trying to use liquefied carbon with while he was fermenting.
What?
And well, a lot of people do this when they're doing distillation, and so his idea was, if you do that, well, what it's going to do is it's going to reduce the fusel alcohols. So that's what he used and tried it out. And
That's what we're drinking right now?
yeah, but look at how pretty that is. It's super clear.
It's very clear, yeah.
I'd love
Is
to
this
have
with the malt in
distilled,
it
actually.
too?
No, this is the malt in it. This is just
Okay.
corn sugar here with yeast nutrient, champagne yeast.
This is still better than any of the commercial examples. That we
I
had.
agree
Yeah,
with that too.
100%. And
It's not as good as yours, though. Yours is absolutely
How did he-
fantastic.
how did he get the flavors in there? Is that the
Okay,
liquid
the
extracts?
Loran's oils that we have at the shop,
Okay.
it's like 1 dram. They're really
Explain what
cheap.
those are.
They're just flavoring extracts, a little tiny little. It's 1 gram. I mean, it's little teeny.
Oh wait, are you talking about those little bottles that look like you smuggle them off of a cruise?
Yeah,
for
exactly.
liquor?
They're
Okay.
smaller than that even. I mean, they're just like they're ultra
Okay,
tiny.
I thought you were talking about like the 4-ounce ones that was like an ounce. to
No,
a
they're
gallon.
actually smaller than that. I
Okay.
mean, these things are about the size of your pinky,
That's
man.
pretty good.
Yeah. So
So-
with talking
that-
about these,
That's
that
good,
peach
isn't it?
mango,
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
talking about these
Stubbings was
flavors,
really good, but this, wow, I'm impressed with these.
So what would you say, Cedric? We probably got 30 different flavors in.
Yeah.
I would say about 30 odd different ones,
35,
plus
30
the ones that we already have in stock. I mean,
Yeah, so
we
so
have a
so,
stock.
so these super concentrated flavoring extracts, they're super small, they're really affordable. I think we have them for like $2.95 each one.
Jeez.
We used for the raspberry, we ended up using 1.5 of them. The
And
other
they're
ones
only
we just
$3 a piece.
yeah they're and the
Wow.
flavors that we have are. We have some stuff that really we bought for seltzers. I mean, we have some cinnamon roll, we have bourbon, just some weird flavorings.
Cookies and cream.
Cookies and cream,
yeah,
like
and that treats like a 5-gallon batch of
Yeah,
product.
yeah.
That's
Like-
what the recommended dosing.
give or take. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean,
To taste and
Uh,
try
yeah.
it right.
yeah, like I said, we started off with half of one in all three of these.
Okay.
Ended up adding all of the lemonade, all 1.5 raspberry, and then like I said, 1 of the peach mango. So.
Okay.
So they came across really. The flavor comes across really cool. They're really fun to use.
So what are we pouring now, Stubby?
So
This is my other. It's the other 4 gallons, but we used lemonade flavoring.
Okay. Oh, cool. I'm looking.
so
I'm interested in that one.
Austin
Yeah,
says here that they're 1/8 of an ounce is what the flavorings are.
Wow.
They're 1/8 of an ounce. They're super they're super small, but
So on the second one, what yeast did y'all use?
Same yeast.
Is it champagne
yeast?
yeast? Champagne
Okay,
yeast. Yeah,
champagne
that's
yeast.
that's
Champagne.
Pasteur Red.
champagne's really good at fermenting very simple sugars. It's not something you want to use in beer ever. I don't care what anybody says. You don't want to use it in beer at all. But it's great for something like this. This one has the.
Tasty. I like this one.
Is it the lemonade flavoring? Like
yeah,
okay.
it's the same flavorings we used for all these.
Definitely not color time.
I like this.
Yeah, I think
Hey,
what,
hey,
did-
that's
did-
the
did-
Georgia brand, okay?
I thought Oklahoma.
I
So-
think it's
so-
crazy how much of a head that has on it.
It really like. Well, even Austin's has maintained a pretty decent. Of course, that it was a little overcarbed, but
I don't think you can overcarb these things.
No. That's the great thing about it.
I don't think that- yeah.
They have a lower body, so the head's going to dissipate pretty quickly.
But I didn't think I would like this lemonade, but I actually do because I think it's really refreshing.
It is. It tastes like there's
I like
actually
the
lemon
original
in
one
it.
better, the first one, which was just
raspberry.
hops, right? Oh no, that was raspberry. Right?
Raspberry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like the raspberry better than the lemonade one. The lemonade tastes like country time lemonade.
Yes, it does.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But it tastes like good country time.
see, we were angling for the Mike's Hard Lemonade type.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you did hit that for sure. Yeah.
See,
This one's a lot better than what you think, Brandon.
which one?
This one.
It's better than what I think.
You're saying you're not giving it enough credit.
Like my opinion is wrong.
Yes,
Pretty
yes,
much
your
your
much what
opinion
he
is
just
wrong.
said.
That too.
Man, I don't know.
All right, so
Okay, so let's talk about brewing. Oh wait, we got one of Chris's to taste here too.
Oh, and we still have several.
See, and we got several of Cedric's. And so what's important about tasting all these homebrew versions of it is because this took a lot of experimentation by everybody around here to try and figure out how to do this. Just adding sugar into water and throwing yeast in it does not work well. There's more to it
I
than
beg
that.
to differ.
I tried that as well.
Well, let's test everything around here and see, and we'll get into the methods that everybody used.
So one of the things that I didn't do, I think actually, now that I think about it, I think the one way I could improve both of these, the ones that I did, is actually add some citric acid to it. Just maybe
I can see that. Yeah,
maybe punch up the
especially on the
citrusy-
lemonade one.
Yeah.
The lemonade one could use some citric acid in it, and that's why I say it tastes like country time because it's more of like a sugary lemon flavor,
Yes.
without the tartness to it. Yeah.
Right. So I think I can punch it up a little bit with that. But one of the things that I think is really interesting about this, if you just put sugar and water in there, that's not going to work. You're going to have to at least have some yeast nutrients and stuff of that nature. I know, and we'll talk about Cedric's too, because I think he has some interesting.
So I get
stuff
the
as well.
impression that the one that you're passing around to us right now, Chris, is just sugar and water, correct?
Sugar, water, yeast, and it is a sugar syrup that we used to carry in the shop.
Okay.
It's
Cascade?
The Cascade sugar strawberry.
Okay.
4 pounds of sugar, filtered water,
So that's why yours has the color it does. Is the
the strawberry.
Okay.
So it's probably going to be a little sweeter, maybe, right? A finish on it.
It finished out at 0.994. And I used I used the Omega
That's
Hothead.
not bad either.
And I put it in my garage. It got up to 97 degrees.
Did you put any yeast nutrient in it?
I did not.
The Kavaika doesn't
That's-
need it, I don't guess.
That is a testament to what that hothead
I know.
yeast does. That
Like you
shit
said,
is unbelievable.
97 degrees and 0.994. I want the peanut gallery to taste this too because I freaking
gallery.
love this one.
Well, so here's the thing about it, is that I think the hothead yeast does you a lot of favors with this in terms of fermenting clean, but it still is like there's nothing there in the middle. It's I don't know. I think I like the Stubby's version like a lot better. you know?
I'm thinking I'm gonna maybe brew one of those this weekend.
Yeah, like
Well, and the cool thing
No,
about
it's-
it is
I'm
you
not
still
saying
feel
it's-
like you're kind of brewing.
Because I have grain in it.
no,
Yeah,
and
opposite.
I'm not saying it's bad or that I don't like it. I do like it actually. You know, if I had made
pretty
this and
good.
served to
It's-
people, it would not. But it just kind of there's nothing there in the middle.
No, it is flavored alcohol with fizziness.
And you can taste the alcohol in it too. Very similar
It
to
is-
the. Which one did we taste that was real alcoholic?
The collective first one.
The first collective one, yeah, that
The
one.
blood orange.
Yeah,
If I were going to do this again, I would do it with some yeast nutrient, and I would use the Voss Quebec or the Hornindal instead of the Hothead to give it a different.
see,
yeast
I think
flavor
I
to it.
like the champagne yeast better.
I think I
personally.
like
Just
the
clean,
cleanliness
neutral,
of that.
yeah.
I will say this though, man. You probably I had to leave it a long time because that champagne yeast can make it. Well, at least putting it in with the beer, the actual beer, maybe made it worse. But it was very farty. I mean, man, sulfur like
Really sulfur,
crazy.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
champagne and used
So
to do that.
yeah, so it took a while to really clean itself up because it had
Chris's
a lot
is
of
really
sulfur.
interesting here. I mean, there's a lot of flavor in there, and it's tough.
There's
to
a lot
nail
of
down.
there's a lot of probably complex carbohydrates in there that the yeast couldn't consume, so it left that with that candy syrup.
That's what I imagine. And I
telling you,
I
this-
love the candy
It went
syrup
below
lemonade.
zero.
Yeah.
This
And-
lemonade tastes like sucking on like a lemon head for a second. This lemonade I actually
I
probably
like the raspberry one way
this,
better. Than
sorry,
the lemon.
I'm ingesting more of this, and this lemonade's really freaking good. I'm
We're all
really.
getting
I like
it
the
all tasted
raspberry
in
one a
here.
lot, but the peach mango for me, something about that
The peach,
combination.
that peach mango one was really good. Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, those two, the raspberry and the peach mango. That
Well, see, and here's
just
one of the
worked.
here's
I
one of
don't
the
know.
things that I think is interesting about the whole thing is that that's why I wanted to do two different flavors too on the same base, and the reason being is I wonder if if you have to be careful with that because it might be just the actual flavoring extract that you like rather than the actual thing that you
Right,
made.
right.
So that's something you have to consider,
Or
as
that you
well.
don't like with the
Yeah.
collective one. I think that first one. I think what I didn't like was
the
the
orange,
flavoring in
yeah.
it, and it. At first, I thought it was something else, but when you taste the same thing with different flavoring in it, you go, "Oh, wait a minute! I think it was just that blood orange flavor."
Well,
again
that's
that I
what's
didn't
kind of
like.
cool too. Is if you
Yeah.
wanted to do 5 gallons out or you could buy a bunch of those little bitty things. They're not very
Yeah.
expensive, so you can have multiple different ones. So
So did you boil this
yes, I did boil this
for
for
how
30
long?
minutes.
30 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, 30 minutes, and then
So
I threw
basically, steeping a muslin bag, boiling it for 30 minutes. You could do this on your stove top
absolutely
in an
absolutely.
afternoon, no problem. It's
And
not
here's
a
what you
full-
can do too: is you can and I mean, here's what I did. I ended up screwing up, and I did double the amount that I had anticipated. So I just watered it back down with bottled water in order to get my gravity. So I really wasn't concerned about really wasn't concerned so much about is the IBUs or anything
Right,
like that.
right.
So. The main thing I was wanting to get just a hint of that those hops, and then also I would just wanted to have a little protection to keep it from getting funky. And
No,
All right,
and
let's-
you brought up a great point, Brandon, that it never talking about the flavorings, how it changes it so much. I have 2 3-gallon kegs at home. I don't ever freaking use them for anything. This right here,
Yeah.
I'll brew a 6-gallon batch of this, split it into those 2 3-gallon kegs, add different flavorings, and have
Exactly,
two what
yeah.
could be very different tasting.
I mean, this is
I mean-
also a great example for going back and brewing a regular sized batch and then going back to bottling and trying.
That's what I was thinking. I was
6
thinking of doing
bottles
like
of different
a
flavors.
5-gallon batch of
Yeah.
this, and then splitting it out into like bombers or something.
Yeah.
and
just
trying
try out
5 or
different
6
flavors
different
and then
flavoring combinations.
Decide which one you want to
Yeah.
go full size with.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, honestly, when you guys, I saw y'all were planning on. Nigel told me y'all were talking about hard seltzers today. I was like, okay, like not my, but I'm actually kind of interested in some of these.
it's
Some of these combinations. This is kind of cool.
dude, the
Kinda cool,
lemonade's
yeah.
getting better. I don't know why.
the lemonade, dude. I'm
just
loving this
had a
lemonade.
second one, and it tastes pretty damn good.
I'm loving this lemonade.
I think this is a prime example of people who like to play around with flavors.
Yeah.
This is a great thing to play around
Well, I mean,
with.
I've done that with like
This-
the beer side. You brew a 5 or 6 gallon batch, whatever, and split it up and do different yeasts. You
Yeah.
know, we've all done that kind of thing. Like this with the seltzer world could be where you play around with the flavoring additives to try different things. And
What I really
what you
want to
like.
do now is pour a little more lemonade in here and add a splash or two of the raspberry.
Yeah,
And
and
see,
yeah, there you
they
go.
give
Now
me a
you're
raspberry
mixing-
lemonade.
now
Like
you're mixing your mixers. You know,
Yeah,
It's
that-
yeah.
I'd love to,
I can have my 2 3-gallon
Yeah,
kegs.
do
Give me
it,
3
you know?
flavors.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd love to see this as a mix and match station at a brewery.
That's what I was. I was really
pour,
thinking.
pour
like,
your
so-
own, or
Yeah.
to
Like he
it.
was
Yeah.
talking, Brandon's talking about, if you bring somebody that's not into beer to the breweries with you, well, if they were making these different hard seltzers and they have the flavoring station, like you said,
Yeah.
then, the
like-
friends of yours or the wives or whatever that aren't into craft beer necessarily, they can go and gather and mix and match and do things like we all probably did when we were kids playing soccer. You make your version of
Suicide.
suicides. Exactly, right? So this is,
Every soda.
the craft version of suicides here,
All right, so let's taste some of Cedric's
Cedric.
atomic panty dropper here.
Cedric, is this the one you let me try at the
Well-
at the shop the other day?
Well, first we're gonna start off real slow. We're gonna start with just the base. My base is kind of like I kind of took Austin's approach on it and make it as simple as possible.
And just corn sugar.
yeah. So I'm just corn sugar, yeast nutrient, and my coffee maker to heat up my water enough so I can dissolve that sugar. All right. Like the first.
All right,
Yeah. This one definitely speaks for itself.
Mr. Fancy dissolving your sugar in
I'm
hot
trying.
water.
Let's just not
I
be
know, right?
judgmental. Let's try the results and
Listen,
see.
Cedric
Yeah.
is brimming with confidence over here. Let's.
Rimming.
Tell you, feeling like I'm winning the title right now. It's already over.
Which one is it? This,
Look at the bottle.
that-
Put the camera on me over here. Look at this.
This first one that
I
I'm
can see you
sitting
through that
around,
bottle.
Yeah.
Like
It's
that's
brilliantly clear.
This is
You
actually
can't appreciate it.
apricot
The camera
flavored.
doesn't get it right, but
I know, right?
it's like the bottle has nothing in it, really.
It does almost look
CL or SG?
We're on. Well, they're tasting apricot right now. Y'all can open up the.
That's
CL.
really good.
This is apricot or the base. What?
That's apricot.
okay.
See,
so-
now this one to me, there's nothing there except for the flavor that you put in it.
Exactly.
You get no alcohol, you get no malt flavor or anything like that. This is super, super clean. And I got to think it's the yeast nutrient.
there is
Yes.
a ton of shit in the bottom of that bottle, though.
Yes,
Don't shake it
it's
up.
definitely a dirty fermenter.
It's actually the
Dirty
name of it
fermenter.
is ton of shit seltzer.
There is a massive amount of stuff in the bottom of that.
Don't shake it up. Jeez.
So
Pass
the
that
one
on to
thing
the
that I
peanut gallery.
can
They
tell, I thought you used maltodextrin in yours. Did you not? So it's not just sugar.
and citric acid. So
Oh, so you lied to us.
his
I feel so deceived.
has a little mouthfeel. And
It has a little bit of mouthfeel, a
That's
little
what-
bit
yeah,
of body.
little
Yours
bit
is
of-
a lot sweeter.
It's a little mouthfeel to it. Yeah.
What
that's-
what flavoring did you use on
This
this?
is actually the
this is the
natural
apricot.
flavoring, the brewer's best or whatever that we
The
use.
4-ounce ones.
Yeah, the 4-ounce brewer's best
Okay.
natural flavorings, which I thought would actually lend itself to this style because people want to go after the low cal, low carb.
Yeah.
I made sure all my sugar was fermented out before I, moved it on to the next stage. So really no residual sugar. So it's all that
Because
flavoring.
I originally bought
Okay.
some of those thinking that I wouldn't get enough flavor to translate after fermentation.
Yeah.
Thinking I could still add on after, and then decided I liked it how it ended up.
Yeah, same here. And people say that it tastes sugary or sweet, and
I think
I'm
it's just
like,
that flavor.
Yeah, the flavor brings everything that you need to it.
Yeah.
So all
Well,
you need is a
now
good
that I know
base.
there's maltodextrin in it, I think that's what it is. I think the maltodextrin adds a little bit of base
Yeah.
for that flavor to sit on, so the flavor doesn't taste like an artificial
Yeah, it tastes
flavoring just sitting on your tongue. There's a little bit of substance to the bottom of it that
bit
gives it
of
a little bit of
soft
depth.
sweetness.
Yeah. Soft sweetness. Yeah, exactly.
So for maltodextrin, I only use 4 ounces of it. Usually 8
That's
ounces
more than
per
2.
5-gallon batch, but I went ahead and sliced it in half.
So 4 ounces in a 5-gallon.
He was being
Yeah,
cheap.
4 ounces.
and
in
so
a 5
Stubby used about 4 ounces in his also, so
Okay.
just
Yeah.
under 4
In
ounces.
his 8-gallon batch, though.
What I'm passing around
Oh,
now.
that's true.
Did you
Yeah.
did you scale that down? Okay.
So what I'm passing around now is the coconut lime version of it.
Ooh, coconut lime.
I wanted to
I
give
like those
a
flavors.
a lot of different variations of it based off of this one base.
And again,
just so we can.
So
all
why
get
is there so
some.
much shit in the bottom of these bottles?
It's bottle conditioned, so
Mine is hazy
Bottle
now.
conditioned
Stop talking
seltzer.
crap.
bottle conditions beat it's real.
No,
it's real.
Michael is
This
really
is the real ale
getting
of
the
the
shit into
seltzer
the
world or
stick over
something?
there.
What-
Oh my gosh.
Cedric, a lot of these flavors are coming across like a moaning syrup.
Why?
See, because I'm getting the bottom of the bottles that are like very
Yeah,
cloudy.
we're getting the back end here a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
theirs are crystal clear. Mine looks like Smirnoff Ice. Like it's.
Aroma on that
around
is
the other
really
way.
nice. Though. I like that coconut. That
This is
Ooh.
great, Cedric.
See, to me, the aroma made it seem like the coconut was going to be way too much, but
I haven't
actually, I
tasted
think
yet,
you got
but-
it just right. The,
Dude,
the
that's
flavor on it's
actually-
really nice.
You know what this tastes like? This tastes exactly like an ocean
my.
water at Sonic.
Yes, exactly.
I
but
love
better
this.
because
And all
there's
these-
alcohol.
All
This
these
could get
flavors
me
are
in
like
trouble.
curated because what
This
I
is
had
really
was a
good.
5-gallon batch that I transferred to a 1-gallon little plastic container.
Yeah.
And that allowed me to flavor it in such a small way that
Okay.
I could.
I could drink the shit out
Yeah.
of this. This is
Yeah.
Careful with that
Wow.
because it is 5.6%, so you
Only
don't want to.
5.6?
5.6.
Yeah. So these that I started with were 5.6, and I wanted to get y'all used to that base and everything. Well, I also did a very different deviation of it.
Yes, bring it.
To where I wanted to see how far I could push the envelope on all this. So,
I thought you were like an envelope pusher.
so this one is my 11%. It was actually fermented with Hornindal. I thought it was supposed to be around 10, but I put peach rings in it, so it fermented all
like
that
that.
sugar as well and ended up below 1. So
So when you say peach rings, you're talking about the gummy.
I'm
Peach.
talking about the
You
gummy.
you went full Mikey.
Oh boy, why
He,
did I?
he,
do
he,
that?
he channeled his inner Mikey slash
Channeled his inner Mikey.
Turning
yes.
Point slash several other
So-
local breweries now.
You know what? I'm
hold on a
disappointed Mikey isn't here for this episode. Mikey would have
This-
enjoyed this one.
These
Passed around
seltzers.
This way?
Yes,
That's
he would have.
strawberry kiwi.
This is strawberry cake. Okay, I was saying,
Yeah,
this is
that's
a different
the, okay.
flavor.
That's the one I tried
Yes,
at the shop
yeah.
the other day. Right. Okay.
Strawberry kiwi is coming
Strawberry
around this.
kiwi is delicious.
The strawberry. It was good when I tried it the other day, but
And
So this is 11% what now?
That's a 11% hard seltzer flavor with the Loran. That is Tutti Frutti.
So,
Earlier I heard
Nigel's throwing out a
envelope pusher.
Nigel's throwing out a challenge here. He says to be a panty dropper, somebody has to drop their panties. So
Well, tell Nigel he didn't show up
yeah,
tonight.
exactly.
Yeah.
The Brit's the one that.
yeah. So he texted me a little while ago. Not to circle too back too much, but he asked, "Can I enter an English seltzer
into
in the homebrew competition?
he saw that.
No.
Absolutely, you can. You just get to
Well, you
classify it as the
can,
wrong
but
thing.
yeah, we've got an alternative fermentables category, but
Is that a
it's probably not going to score
So
real well.
real quick, hold on a second. I want to talk a little bit more about this one because I'd like to.
Yeah, that's
very farty.
Yeah.
So is this just a ramped up version, or is there more in this?
This one was kind of a different recipe. This is 10 pounds of sugar fermented in 5 gallons of water with same yeast nutrient. But this one has the Kvike Hornindal in it.
Okay,
So
okay.
I went away from the champagne yeast and did Hornindal because I thought I could turn it over faster for our
I
podcast.
almost get a touch of the pickle beer. I mean,
Well-
not
well,
necessarily, but a little bit, but a little bit of that tartness.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a little bit of a tartness to it that I think is coming from the yeast.
Yeah, it's very
white wine.
Chardonnay-ish.
little bit of a Chardonnay to it. Yeah.
You know, the
weird with
taste
the
the taste
Hornindal.
is not bad. Like the aroma, I was like, I don't know about, but the taste, that's not bad.
You're right.
actually.
The aroma was a little off-putting at first.
Yeah.
At first, I thought this is going to be
I was
really
not going to
medicinal.
enjoy that. Yeah,
and but the taste is really good. I
which
like.
is yeah.
Now, Cedric,
That's
do you have more
Sorry,
of
brother,
some of
that's not
these?
my favorite.
yes,
of
I
yours.
have a lot. Of them.
Can
I
take
almost
some
think
home?
like
Yeah.
this needs to be
Okay,
on
good.
ice.
I mean, if you're going to do that, like maybe bubble CO2 from the bottom or something, try
That's
to
what
blow
I would
off
do.
some of that.
or put
that
it on
nasty
ice.
funkness,
I think
or-
if you put
or
this
chill
on
it
ice,
way down to get that. Okay.
Now
Well,
I
at
realized
20
my
proof.
mistake in this batch. It's kind of like Stubby, where he just put it in a bucket and let it sit forever in a day.
Said, "Fuck it."
No offense, but yeah. What I did with mine is I thought the Hornindal would actually ferment faster,
Yeah.
but what had happened was
Well, what did you
See what had happened. was
You fermented hot?
it fermented for 3 weeks, and I couldn't stop it. Even when I transferred it over and cold crashed it, it was still bubbling. So, Hornindal,
Bubbling is not a sign of
that's
fermentation.
just gas coming out of suspension. That's all that is. That's not.
Did you degas it though in between?
No.
Maybe you should have. Maybe this one should have been
Yeah.
degassed.
I probably should have degassed it and paid a little bit more attention
Yeah.
to it. Probably racked it off of all those hops.
That's one of those.
Ah,
things,
this
fuck
does
that.
have Mandarin and Bavaria in it.
that's one of those things we've learned from doing batches of meat. Is you got to degas them because it's just eating straight sugar. You
Yeah.
got to get that gas out of suspension.
Yeah.
But I
and
mean, your other ones I really dug. That
Yeah.
coconut lime.
Oh yeah.
and-
The coconut
and
lime was
The,
amazing.
the coconut
that
lime was seriously
yeah.
like I could get so white girl wasted on that.
And this
Yeah.
one is because of that regret, because I felt like I did that one so easily. I mean, I used my coffee pot. I was like, oh man, I'm
Well,
not,
good.
I'm
I
not
mean,
gonna
hey,
put
yeah.
this
So,
one
so,
out.
so basically, you did. I tell a lot of home brewers that like their third or fourth batch, they're going to get cocky and
Oh,
screw
yeah.
stuff up. So this is your third or fourth.
Oh, I got
You were like-
real
you're
cocky.
like,
I was
oh.
like, yeah.
I got this shit. Like I can bust it out. Like
I wanted to
and-
do the most and create a kind of a super panty dropper, which I think this is still easy drinkable, even though that it's 11%, to where you can't really tell.
If you can get them
exactly
past the
Well,
aroma, then
yeah.
yeah.
That's the aroma.
Well, I
Like-
think you can tell there's a lot of alcohol in it, but I don't think it's a harsh alcohol.
No, it's
where
very smooth.
where it's unpleasant. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's just one of those where you can taste the alcohol. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't mind tasting alcohol.
Because I tell you, after these cider seltzers, I'm like, oh, thank God for alcohol.
Everybody got pregnant. Everybody got pregnant.
So,
I'd
thank
say
God
the
these came
first
around
three or
now.
Okay,
four
so
were
we've all had a lot of
envelope
fun.
pushing, and this one's full on postal.
Yeah.
So we've all had a lot of fun tasting these. We've been yapping and throwing stuff in here, and it's been a difficult listen for people. I want to kind of bring this back a little bit and talk about brewing it. So, so people who have listened to us and decided, hey, these fools are obviously having a good time, and I want to brew this too. I think there's about 2 or 3 different situations that we're talking about here in terms of brewing this. Personally, what I'm going to do, and this is going to sound like I'm shilling for the shop, but seriously, I'm going to buy whatever kit that Stubby did with the malt, because that was by far my favorite
Yes.
one. I mean, not even by a small margin. It was...
Still has some beer flavor.
I don't even know if it had a beer flavor to it,
It just
but
still
it had...
had something more, some more body, or
Yeah, it
there was
had-
just something
yeah.
more to it. That,
It's very approachable and recognizable, though, from those of us that have come
being a
up
beer
in
guy.
the beer side of things.
yeah,
That it's like, okay, like I want to try something new, like. but it's still recognizable.
Well,
at
it
least.
definitely was to me, it was almost a cross between some of the other seltzers we had and a light beer.
Right.
You know, it had, like you were saying,
Yeah.
had some of those beer characteristics, some things that as a beer drinker, I could be like, ooh, I recognize this. But as a beer hater, I could have drank it and not
Been
picked
okay,
up on
yeah.
those,
Right, Yeah,
not picked
yeah.
up on some of the stuff that us beer guys did.
So I think there's two different schools of thought on here. Is do you want to brew something and just have it come out to be a thing, or do you want to play around with it and maybe make 2 or 3 batches that you're not happy with, but the fun of it for you is doing it and figuring it out.
Well, I think we let Stubby figure it out.
Yeah. I think no, personally,
Well, good.
Or
I
that
think
might
what-
have just been lightning in a bottle.
Well, here's what I kind of look at it when I decided to kind of do something different. Is when I see something like this and I saw the hard seltzer, I said, how can I make it better? You know, and I mean, now I'm not saying that this is the end all be all, but this was kind of my first step at trying something different and doing something different than somebody else is doing. And then I was like, well, you know, I got that. I really wanted to kind of get a head start on it. If let's just say tomorrow the ABC or somebody cracks down on somebody,
The
well,
ABC.
ABC and other
Oh, right.
places.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I forget there are other places in Texas.
There is lands outside of Texas.
Yeah.
Start,
Lesser
yeah,
lands.
I
Go
know.
on. Go on.
Start cracking down on these guys and saying, hey, you can't do that. You need to use barley in it. We do have a product that you can get, and this is what we used in it was the Munton Super Pale, which is 1.3 Lovabond, so it's lighter than Pilsner malt and anything. So, I mean, you guys all saw it here. It does have.
Let me hold that up again and show it because it can't be overstated how pale this is. It's the most pale malt you'll ever use.
Also, I know that talking to a couple of different brewers about this, that they were worried that you have to use at least 50% if you're on a beer license or
To
at
be a-
least
Yeah, I was wondering what the percentage was. So
So
50%.
on
Okay.
this, you're using over 50% grain. So you would be okay on a beer license, whereas if you were on like a meadery license,
Now
or
I
something
know
like
they
that.
also have to add a certain amount of hops for it to be legally.
There just has to be
beer.
hops in there.
Okay, there's
not
no
an
set
amount.
amount. Okay, cool.
Like I know that at Collective at one point for a 3 or 4 barrel batch they were putting a hop pellet.
Right, for some of the stuff when they go to like
I don't know if it
sours and
was
things,
much
you have to
that
add
much,
some hops to make it that you throw one hop cone or
No, there
one
just has
pellet.
to be
Yeah.
hops in it. So
Sure.
you know
Okay,
there's
fair
really
point.
no designation how much it has to
Okay,
be.
all righty.
In this particular case, I feel like that 1/4 ounce of Mandarina Bavaria was
Right, I mean, I think it definitely
fantastic.
adds
I mean,
something. I like
it
it
was
better this way. I
delicious,
just,
man.
if we're looking at the legal aspects, where are the lines?
none of us are lawyers.
Thank God.
So
Or maybe not. I
kind of
don't know.
talking about brewing it. Initially, I had read that using tap water gave you almost a white wine flavor. So you wanted to use RO water, and then add
That's
some
a
nutrients.
really excellent point. Starting with the water, yeah.
So it was one of those, and having tried both Austin and Stubby's before we added the flavoring, I would have said that's true. I very much got a white wine flavor. They used regular non-RO water.
No,
but,
we use spring bottled water.
well, but it's non-RO.
Yeah.
So it still has some of that minerals that I read gave that white wine flavor. But then when we added the flavorings, that was quickly covered up. So my thought of having to use RO and then add nutrient and all that stuff maybe isn't as true.
No, just use spring water.
That's what's
Yeah,
odd
or
about
tap
that.
water.
That's what's odd about that whole deal. I mean, I heard that as well. But here's kind of the thing I'm looking at. If you're stirring in yeast nutrient, you're basically putting minerals back into the
Right, that's
water.
not,
anyway.
why do you bother demineralizing your water if you're going to have to add minerals back into it? Unless you're working off of well water or something that's high in iron or something like
Well,
that.
and a lot of what we're talking about with water additions in beer is accentuating malt or accentuating hops.
Right.
Neither of those are in here.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, to any significant.
Well, yeah.
So
It's
what?
still
So
amount,
what?
so-
What profile would you necessarily recommend looking for?
I
Just to
think
balance-
Stubby's right. Just
a
regular
balanced
spring
profile?
water or
Yeah.
filtered tap water, and
That's
just
what I
go
used
with
for
that.
mine
Yeah.
was
I
filtered
use
tap.
spring water.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I think as we found that if you do it right, the flavoring's going to cover up because we had it raw and there was just a slight white wine flavor. So the flavoring more than compensates for that. It wasn't an overpowering flavor, so it's one of those maybe you shouldn't worry as much about about that end of things.
I mean, the
think.
white wine flavor kind of helps with your flavoring of whatever you're putting in there, because that white wine does add that sweetness that you would otherwise be missing for it to be a Chardonnay. But once you get that and you add it to something, you're good.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like a lot of the early examples, the non-flavored, we got very much like it was Zima. It tasted Zima-esque. But
honestly, I'd rather have Zima than some of those commercial versions.
You know, I agree with you on that, Brian.
But the homebrew versions, I'm down for some of the.
I can't believe how much better these were.
Honestly,
really
yes,
like
totally.
that.
It's blown me away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what Michael's forgetting about the Zimas is that you're supposed to drop the Jolly Rancher you like into
you add your own flavoring to the
and
Zimas.
then cut it half and half with vodka.
I mean, I'm old enough. I remember when Zima came out, and it was.
Oh yeah.
Oh, this is amazing. Blah, blah. I was like, what the fuck is this?
I remember it too, but I wasn't old enough to drink it.
I wonder if this is going to give you a badass hangover, though. That's
I've actually thought about that too. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Ass hangovers are the worst.
One of the things
we will report back tomorrow on the hangover.
One of the things I'd be interested in knowing is you put the hops in with like 5 minutes, and so you picked them up on the nose. I wonder if you put them in at 15 minutes, if you'd lose the nose and maybe just pick up a little bit of flavor.
Well, the only reason I didn't do that is because I was worried about it giving too much. Even at 15, you're still going to pick up some IBUs. So I was still worried about overpowering it with any kind of bitterness. I didn't want, because if you think about it, there's not a whole lot of sweetness in there. So, I mean, that bitterness is really
you're
going to
fermenting all the sugar out.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So that any kind of bitterness is really going to come through, and that's what I was really concerned about. But that's why I did it at 5, because that way I can still get some aroma, but and also get maybe just
a hint of flavor.
Okay, it was interesting because you had great flavor, but you had that dank scent on the nose.
And from experimenting with trying to make hop water, I've found that you can definitely overpower nothing or just a little bit of sweetness with a very small amount of hops. I used half an ounce at 15 minutes for a hop water experiment, and it tasted
awful.
like it was awful.
Well, and I might even it might even be something you could back off on the amount if that was really off-putting to the hop character or whatever. So, that was like it is. That's my first shot at it.
And it turned out pretty damn good.
I think you nailed it.
Pretty good.
I think you absolutely nailed it. I'm absolutely blown away by how good. And you told me I was going to be, and you were 100% right.
I really think we should give this to James because I think you would like it.
I think we should sell this to James.
Well, that too.
I mean, I would never do
sell
that.
a kit,
TABC.
right? Yeah, sell a kit.
Yeah, I
yes.
would never do that. Yeah.
By kit, that's exactly what we're selling it to him.
But and that's some of the things I'd like. I would like to try things that I would do differently. I would add some citric acid in it. I don't know how much, but I think it would kind of punch up the citrusy note in it, especially if you're going with that fruitiness.
What I've found in using citric acid, especially post fermentation, is it takes a lot to really make a difference. It's very forgiving. You can do some and then try a little bit more, and it's not a real strong flavor. So that's one that would be really easy to use post fermentation, I think.
Yeah. But it's
Would you use just citric? I mean, so I know on the beer side of things, people say they don't use lactic as much. They use more phosphoric, less flavor contribution. Do you want to use just citric here, or do you play with some of the different acids to see?
What you're talking about is pH adjustment in the mash.
Right.
And that's a different thing. Post fermentation, adding it in,
just flavoring.
That's coming straight through. And so if you're adding lactic acid in there, you are adding straight
you
up
get that twang,
sourness.
Okay.
Yeah, citric acid is a lot more of a kind of a fruit tartness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've just used, I did a little with lactic. I didn't like it so much, and I went to phosphoric at home on the beer side of things. But I was just wondering how do you,
in the
mash, right?
Yeah,
to make
that's
my
totally different.
I was just wondering, as far as like I've already got that product at home, what kind of contributions could I?
I've never
get
tasted raw for phosphoric acid. To be honest with you,
it's supposed to be fairly neutral. Which is the reason why.
I don't know. I've never tasted it, so I really wouldn't know. But if you're looking for a flavor contribution, something that was neutral but acidic,
Maybe
I
that.
don't know that would. Be
I think
good,
the citric
you
would
know?
work better. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, the citric is a much more palatable flavor.
It's what you're looking for, especially with the
Right.
fruits and things. It brings up that that fruity
if you look
sharpness.
just
so to
about
speak.
any kind of fruit drink or anything like that, you can look in there and it's going to say citric acid.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just a flavoring component rather than any kind of pH adjustment or anything like that. It's more it really truly it tastes just like orange juice or
orange
something.
citrus.
I mean,
Lemon
citrus.
or, yeah.
What do you think if we think of citrus fruit? It's what you get.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well,
and
I
you
think
did
that
say
was.
you mashed for 30 minutes, correct?
Yes, correct.
Awesome. Aaron was asking, and
Mash for 30 minutes and boil.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Jesus, Aaron.
Just
You
gotta
know,
double
Aaron,
check.
you're beginning to. Never mind.
Aaron should just go ahead and move to
I was-
DFW.
I keep trying to get him to come to the DF Dub, him and his wife on a honeymoon or
try the
something,
DF
and
Dub.
Oh, Jesus.
Is that how we say it now?
DF Dub.
yeah, you
We're
know.
world famous, so
But in closing, I just want to say, wouldn't you say these are all very crushable?
They're
That's it. I
Yeah.
quit. That's it.
and you know what?
There's
What's
still
wrong
time
with
to do a keg
Crushable?
stand here.
What's wrong with crushable?
And you know, Brandon, shit gets unruly when you're drinking Truly.
no bad jokes.
That was a
And
little-
that took it over the edge there.
that's a young dad joke right
Honestly,
there.
yeah, I'm like all these different seltzers. Like this stuff would kill in Denton in a college town.
Oh yeah.
You know, like
White girl, yeah.
like you said, white girl, white. Like the we've got a bunch of different craft breweries now up and coming in Denton. Like you guys need to look into some of this stuff because
I know y'all have a new one that's on Kickstarter right now on the Market Square.
Howling Mutt, Howling Mutt, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
Howling Mutt.
Really cool dudes. they're really cool guys. But
So I just
but like
wanted
for a
to-
college town kind of thing, this would be.
for a 22-year-old that doesn't like beer?
Yeah,
Oh,
this
yeah.
would be crazy.
Oh, okay, and
with no
on
hopes
that,
and dreams, no aspirations.
Well, no,
Here it is.
but no, they don't have them because they don't know any better yet. Life hasn't crushed them down. Don't worry, we'll get to you. But yeah, like this kind of stuff, this would like kill in a college town. Like this would be great.
you could sell it by the keg.
Absolutely.
ready for Stubby to make.
They
it
don't know
into
any
a kid
better.
now.
All right.
The kids are coming soon.
10%.
On that note,
11%.
thank you for listening to Come and Brew It Radio. In future episodes, we should have a new Final Gravity episode in the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out on our social media pages for that and send us your beers to talk about. Please, I know that we've gotten really great feedback on Final Gravity. A lot of people are really liking it. We need your beers, though. We need you to send them in. And, I brought in a really shitty beer of my own to that show. Do not hesitate to send in a shitty beer. It's okay.
I brought in
for
a
us
shitty beer today.
You did. That would be a great one to bring in.
It
for Final
wasn't
Gravity.
shitty.
No.
It
It just wasn't as great of a
I don't
head
think it
as
was
it should have
terrible,
been.
yeah.
Like, yeah.
So we will also be tasting and disgusting.
that.
Beer to guard.
I can't talk tonight. I don't know from the very
Now,
beginning of the show.
again, as an outsider
Yeah.
looking in first, like, I see why the podcast
Discussing.
devolves in the last half of the show.
Right. You have a new
Totally
appreciation for it,
understandable.
right?
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Cool.
Experience
Thank you.
Discussing the beer to guard style as soon as our batches are ready, which should be really soon. I know that Nigel and Greg have got several batches that are done and in kegs, and they're just sitting there. But it's a beer that needs to sit and age, and we should have those very soon. But that should be a
Well,
really fun discussion.
Beer to guard does mean
beer for keeping.
Beer for
keeping,
keeping.
yeah.
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. So we keep talking about it, and soon we're going to taste them just like we did with the hard seltzers. We've been talking about it forever, and now we finally got around to it. But be sure to check out our Patreon account at patreon.com/Come and Brew It Radio to help support the show. We have $2, $5, $10, and $20 options because every little bit counts. Plus, we want to reward you while you help keep the show going, get involved, and improve it. In fact, we literally reward lucky Patreon listener with most shows, or sometimes several of them in one show, and have a random drawing from the names of all our $5, $10, and $20 patrons for prize at the end of every month.
we did forget the coupon code. I just
No, we weren't doing a coupon code. What we were doing is we
It's
gave
just-
away
okay,
hats
that's-
to a lot of people, and then we're gonna have a drawing. Yeah, well, mine has handwritten notes on. Thanks for.
I just happened to see right there it said big post break coupon code, but
You and I gotta have a meeting, dude. I mean,
get on the same page here, bro.
I need to get your handwritten notes, is what it is.
So thanks for listening to Come and Brew Radio. Be sure to share with your friends on social media. Give us some ratings on iTunes, Stitcher, and also on Spotify now. And be sure to send any ideas or comments to info@texasbrewing.com. Also, you can check on the brew days of the guys at their Brew Focus Facebook pages at Brew with Stubby, Brew with Brando, Brew with Mikey B, Brew with Chris, Brew with Greg, and Brew with Nigel. And come
brew it.
seltzer it. Come and seltzer it.
Man, seltzer it.